Recording is
We can stop.
Good evening, second time. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome back to 2026 Complete Streets Commission. Meeting started at 6:01, and yeah, excited to be here. Excited to make some progress on our work plan and dive into the year. With that, we'd like to roll call for establishment forum.
Commissioner Rolla.
here.
Commissioner Pinkleton. Here. Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Schneider. Here. Commissioner Katz. Present. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Here.
And Chair Pietro.
Here.
One.
Thank you. All please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Okay. On three, 1, 2, 3.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Awesome. Do we have any public comments not on the agenda? None today. Thank you, Jen, for being here as usual. For the consent calendar, to review to approve the minutes from the special meeting of November 19th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
To approve.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? None, unanimous. Moving on to discussion items, we have 3 major discussion items today. The first one's the 2025-26 annual street resurfacing project. Stevenson will cover that. There's 2 parts to it. One is the preliminary plans, and then the other is for the diving deep into the micro resurfacing for Grant Road, and then the Mellon overlay for Springer Road. We'll talk about the complete streets master plan, safe routes to school status. A 30-minute discussion, which will be led by Commissioner Lee. This is the work that he did last year, diving deep into the safe route to school, surveying the various public schools around and providing us an update. So thank you in advance for your work. And lastly, we'll dive into the 2026 work plan. You'll see we sent everyone an email. I think it was the end of last year, maybe early this year, I can't recall. And we have a large
Recording in
printout of,
progress.
so here we are. Let's see, certainly, 2 documents for us to review. With that, let's start. Stevenson, over to you for the 2025-26 annual streets resurfacing project.
We didn't print it out, so. That's good. It's all happening.
Bear with me for a little bit. I'm having some difficulties.
No worries.
It's your discussion. Yes.
Stephen, while you get set up, would you mind if I revert back to
Please.
public comment so I can address a comment card that came in? I presume. Yeah, so Carolyn, if I can invite you up to the podium, please.
Thanks for telling, I'm a Viper. I'm also working with a high school group at Los Altos High School to try to encourage our students to use ABC and think about a car. And I'm putting together a document to give out to incoming freshmen. And I would really love your input. You know, what would you like parents to know? And we in this committee will try to reach out to the parents. You know, from a safety standpoint, from the city. Let me know what you would like me to include and try to communicate. And it takes many, many, many messages to try to teach, you know, talk to our parents. And we're trying to go for them. And the other thing is I want to thank you for 2 things. One is El Camino has been great. I see bikes on there all the time now, and it's transformed my commute. when I'm coming up from the Caltrain station. And it also, if you ever do a Google search, try to map out the bike route from, say, the sweet shop to Craftsman Worlds or to Whole Foods. Do it by bike, do it by car, and see the contrast that having to avoid El Camino, takes you on these weird side routes that actually expose you to more danger. The other thing I want to do is say thank you for the Hetchy project. I was riding there with my grandkid on a cargo bike, and I'm always bracing myself for that bump at that bike path, and it's just been smooth sailing. And everybody I know is just so pleased with that, and it's been really great. And a change like that makes a huge difference from a rider's perspective. It's so much safer. I used to like break my teeth every time I go over those bumps, and I really appreciate the work that y'all went into doing that and all the other improvements that I've been seeing around. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
May I ask you a question? Can you just, say a couple more words about what you're doing with the high school students?
Sure. So, I work with the PTSA, Sustainability Committee. And, one of the things that we did recently is we had they had all the incoming freshmen, who are all 8th graders now. We hosted a table and are trying to, ask them, how are you gonna get to school next year? And are you gonna take a bus? Are you gonna bike? We had, I had bikeways maps, I had BTA bus maps. We're trying to suggest to parents that they could drop off their kids at the bus stop, and then they can ride the 40 or the 52 and get a lot closer in without having to drive all the way over to Los Altos, and y'all know what that's like. So we're trying to encourage that, and also, biking as well, of course. But, right now, Ringsdorf is still kind of a mess. As you
Well, I'd
know.
like to thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And I really appreciate, the feedback on what's working,
Oh, yeah, you're
because
so
we
welcome.
mostly hear about what's not working.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
And for the commissioners to tie kind of Carolyn's comments to the 2026 work plan that we have before us, we'll cover it later, but goal number 2, project number 2 covers the work that we'll be discussing later today on how we plan for 2026 work plan. Lamar?
Hi.
Is this a comment not on the agenda, or is this on the agenda? It's not on. Please welcome the podium.
Good evening, commissioners, staff. I'm Mark Seidel, community volunteer. I support Safe Routes to Downtown Los Altos. 2 quick things. One, I just want to do a +1 for what Caroline said about El Camino. I use it, and I see people using it, and every time I hear people say that people aren't using it, I get upset. So for the record, if people are using it, I use it, and I appreciate it. The second thing is I want to talk about downtown Los Altos just for a little bit and basically just say thank you for the improvements that were made in downtown. I know it's not everything that I asked for, that Safe Routes asked for, but in particular, I appreciate the ladder crosswalks at the junction of State and Main, and the little bulb out that is changing the radius of turns coming on to State Street, coming from San Antonio or Edith, around that way. I've seen cars really slowing down to make that turn, and I've used the crosswalks and I feel a lot safer using them. So thank you for those specific improvements, and also the bulb outs and crosswalk over by where Redberry is. I think that shortening the distance between the curves is really helpful, and so I want to applaud you for making those changes. I think it's made downtown safer. There's more we can do, but great steps, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? That then officially concludes our public comments on the agenda, so at least brought back forward to discussion items. Stephen, are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
We start the whole program.
I'm glad that we had perfect time.
That's true. And then just zoom into the spring.
Can you, before you dive in, just give us a quick recap of the item before us, kind of work that you've done and what we're discussing?
Two items that's being discussed is Springer and Grant. The reason why those two are being, discussed is because we're making some modifications to striping itself. We're actually implementing, protected bike lanes with buffers. Both on Grant and as well as Springer. Springer will be a continuation of what is, currently out there now. What's a 5-foot wide buffer, 5-foot wide bicycle lane with a 2-foot buffer. I've been implementing delineators, just as, how do I say it? Some of the locations are just standard delineators that you see out on State Street, and contractor still has not received the type of delineators that you guys currently see out on El Camino Real. A lot of those are being installed along at the intersections where cars, I'm trying to force the cars to slow down and make that right turn to the side streets. And at the same time, trying to protect the bicyclists when they're trying to go through those intersections. So as the materials arrive, you should start seeing some of those delineators starting to be installed on Springer. You'll also start seeing it on Grant between Grant Foothill all the way out to Homestead. That whole area, that stretch is gonna have additional delineators and so on. So with that in mind, I'm continuing on with what has already been installed out on Springer. So that's what I will start with first. So the Springer itself is going to be a little bit different in the fact that there's a lot of structural things that needs to be done, but that is not part of this discussion. What I do want to discuss is the fact that how is the striping going to be changed? It's more reason my computer's trying to slow down. So we'll start where we are connecting on first. Right about here, this is approximately 901 Springer. This is where this product, this year's annual street has basically stopped. We're picking up that design from this location, where, as you can see, we're continuing on with the narrowing of the road to 10.5. I would not recommend going any lower than that, just because then a lot of box truck would be now straddling the lanes. Caltrans also recommends not to exceed 10.5. You could go down to as much as 10, but they recommend not to go lower than 10.5. So the idea is to by making it feel narrow, the car's going to slow down. So we're going to go ahead and continuing on with that that same setup. We're going to go ahead and put 5-foot wide with a 2-foot buffer and a 10.5-foot wide drive aisle. We're also, the plans doesn't show it, but we're going to be putting in green stencils on the bicycle lanes as much as we can to show that this is a bike lane. Areas that is wide like this has been a challenge in the fact that the width of the road itself is varying so much. So given the fact that a lot of these residents are parking there in front of their homes, we really cannot put too much obstruction. Even putting stripes down is only going to have very limited results. So we're going to continue on with it, but we're going to go ahead and put in the edge line. What I've been doing is on these extra wide areas, I've been putting stripes down like it is an island. Close to the intersections, I've been putting delineators, so it forces the cars to make wide right, going to a travel lane. And after that wide right, I kind of leave it open for the residents to continue parking in front of their homes. So same design as before, we're going to continue to follow that same pattern. Out on Rosita, we're redoing the speed table out there, and the fact that we're going to go ahead and remove that. The way it is right now is it's not a true speed table. It has a round mound on it. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. Go ahead and make it a speed table, so it's going to have a flat surface and a ramp up to it. We're also placing new, MUTCD approved delineators to show that there is a speed table out there. So as you can tell, these are about 100 feet. It shows that there's a different pattern coming up. So it kind of gives them an idea. And then the speed table, this will be the new speed table. We already has, flashing, the flashing signs for the crossing itself. So no physical modifications will be made at this location. Because it's already meeting the complete street master plan.
Question for you, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
Is a speed table needed for a school in the area, or is it some other?
There is a school in the area.
So Stephen, I'm a little bit, I'm seeking clarification, looking at the drawings, it's not clear to me what's going away and what's replacing what's going away.
Right now, the existing, maybe I should show the. Aerial photo. Basically, what we're doing is this, the difference between what is there now and what is being proposed.
Even we can't see it on your screen.
No, I'm getting there. I gotta get to the right spot first.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Basically, what's going on out there right now is this, we have a bike lane out there, out on, Springer,
Right,
but there's no buffer.
okay,
So what we're doing is we're actually placing a 2-foot buffer. That's the only major real difference, is the fact that as we are trying to bring the buffer on the whole stretch of Springer, we're trying to get it from Foothill all the way out to El Camino, so that it aligns with what the city of Mountain View is doing.
right, and so when we put in the 2-foot buffer,
Mhm.
proposed 2-foot buffer, are we taking 2 feet from the driving lanes?
No, the width of the road is such that it's wide enough for us to allow for that 2-foot buffer and a 5-foot bicycle lane. So we actually, let me rephrase that. We're actually narrowing it from an 11-foot wide to a 10.5. And then there's also enough edge on the side of the road that allows us to have a 5-foot bicycle lane and a 2-foot buffer lane.
So 1.5 feet is coming from the shoulder,
Yes,
and a 1/2 foot is
coming
coming
from the travel lane.
from one travel lane, or is that being split between both, and then you?
Each travel lane is being reduced to half.
A 1/2 foot, okay.
So let's get to Springer.
Can I ask another question, Stephen?
Yes,
We're out of curiosity. Does that maintain the same center line that I know we talked about in the past then? Like in Ralph? Okay, cool. Just curious.
So, you just mentioned at the speed table, there's RFPs,
Yes,
and I don't recall seeing this, I was just there, and Google Street View says it's not there either. Are you putting those in?
well,
Is it
what I recall, there was already one there.
What's the energy day?
Yep. You looking at Rosita, or are you looking at,
November 22 is.
no, which street is it on, Rosita?
On Springer.
Yes, across,
That
at Rosita.
It's not way to put out comments, I think.
No, you can.
Right, yeah.
I apologize, my computer is really slow right now.
Oh, my question?
Yeah.
I was just curious, you said that there was a change in the original design. I'm curious to know what triggered the change. Isn't that what you said? I might be wrong. In this Springer,
No, only modifications we're making on Springer is the fact that the change we're making is how the lanes are done. So we're reducing the 11-foot wide lane to 10.5.
oh, okay,
So we're creating more, we're narrowing the road. We're adding more, taking some off the edge. So we could have a 5 to 10.5 foot lane, 10.5 foot lane, 2, and then 5.
oh, I see. That's what you mean by the modification. I thought
Yes,
it was
that's the
bigger
modification we're,
change
needs to be
before.
done.
Okay.
So we clarify that, you know, the type of flashing there is different, you know, they have like a sign, the school sign that had LEDs around it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the old ones that we have until that thing basically dies. That's what we're gonna do.
That's it, correct. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. You're wrong many times. Been wrong many times. Is there any other questions regarding Springer? One of the reasons why it seems like we're not doing as much on Springer as we did this year is because there's a lot of structural issues with the road itself. So it's gonna take us a lot more money to do the repairs that we need to do. So it's a little bit shorter run this time around.
So I did have one question. You said that we're doing this all the way to El Camino? Doesn't that month you take over at the intersection of El
It's all the way to J Street.
Jason.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where the City of Mountain View is gonna come up with their modifications. So our design will
Match.
match theirs.
Do you know where they are with their design? How
The
far?
last time I talked to them, they are saying that they have completed their public outreach. And they're trying to finalize their plans.
I see, okay.
I have one follow-up question. Which is, in taking the 1.5 feet from the shoulder. If cars or delivery vehicles are parking on the shoulder, and I don't know the extent of that. Does taking 1.5 feet away push those cars or delivery vehicles out into the bike lane? So my understanding is you're reducing the shoulder on one
Mhm.
side by 1.5 feet. And you can see cars parked on the shoulder,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So when you take that 1.5 feet away, right? Where will those, can you change the striping, right? That shoulder is 1.5 feet
Narrower, but the width of the shoulder is already wide enough.
It's wide enough to accommodate a delivery vehicle or a
Yes,
car,
yes,
even with a 1.5 feet. guide.
correct.
Steve, I recently went down Springer last week and saw the new striping and, cars parked along the road and there was room for both.
Oh, it's already there.
The striping's already completed
Yeah.
for a large segment of the,
So if you can see right now.
the work's been done. Not fully done at the steering, but, the works, most of the striping's been done, I think Steve Stevens sharing that some other aspects still need to be implemented, like indicators and so forth, and the tabletop and so forth, but. most
So-
of it's-
Thank you.
So as you can see right now, the edge of the travel lane is right about here. So there is no buffer whatsoever between the travel lane and the bicycle. So basically what we're doing is we're actually creating a 2-foot buffer as much as we can. If we have enough space, we're actually adding a little bit more if we can. But at a minimum, we're trying to put that 2-foot buffer in. So now it basically has that area where bicyclists could go, vehicles could travel. And there's no longer one on top of the other, basically.
So the car that we see parked down the street.
Hmm?
When that buffer goes in, how close to that car will the buffer be?
You mean this? As you can see right now, you're seeing. You're basically seeing how the cars are already parked right there.
Right.
There's already width right there to allow for the bicycle lane to go in. All we're doing is we're moving over a little bit, so we're maintaining the recommended, or how do I say it? We're maintaining the city standard when it comes to the width of the parking lot. We're just kind of trying to narrow it as much as we can, so that we're trying to squeeze in a bicycle
Right,
buffer.
so when that driver is opening his door
It'll be in the
into the
bicycle,
street, it'll be in the bike lane or in the buffer?
it'll be in the bicycle lane. If you drive out Springer right now, you can see how the striping is gonna work and how the parking is gonna work.
Great, thank you.
Just a follow-up question. On the, delineators, you're expecting to put these delineators, typically in the right turns, for the right turn. And that would be where on, Covington, Rosita.
Well, this project would be on, right now, I haven't decided on all the locations yet. This is just preliminary plans at this time. But if you see like, Riverside, you see how it has these. Must have way too much stuff open today. You see these little dots right here?
Yeah.
In the travel lane, those are delineators.
Okay.
So basically what the intent is, given the fact that it is wide, we do not want the cars come in,
Yeah,
do a short and then turn.
but.
We're having delineators here and here at these locations. So it forces the cars to come all the way up to the intersection before making that right turn. And it also forces these cars to come all the way out and
Yeah.
make that right turn.
And we also discussed this possibly doing on Covington too, right? From Covington turning right on to Springer going south, going north.
I believe so, yes, right? And
Just to protect the, student bicyclists that come by there, it's a way for them to at least sort of safely.
I believe so, yes. It's been a little while since I've looked at the plans. But I know like, the one on Berry.
Yeah.
We're actually putting in delineators and those delineators are pretty expensive, but it takes a little time for us to get those. So where that second lane drops to make that right turn on Berry. And we have the bicycle lane, just to keep the cars from changing their mind and jumping back in the travel lane. We're actually putting in delineators right there with the curb on it.
Yeah.
So they would have to go over the curb through the delineators to try to go straight.
Also, there's gonna be a curve as well,
Yeah, there's actually a curb, so.
only in that place, only in Berry.
There are a few places. Actually, I'm installing about 326 linear feet. That's costing us about 200,000 to. Mhm. The curve itself is about 4 inches, and then the delineator goes up another 3 feet, I believe.
That's the ones you see on that.
Yeah, it's the same one.
It's wide,
Yeah,
right.
it's wide,
Yeah.
is what the wide happens.
The ones that you put, the ones that you put in the downtown is a different one, right?
It's a much different one.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that, you plan to keep those the same, the ones in the downtown.
Yes. Yeah, those are not gonna be changed. Those are definitely. As it was already expressed, I do already see a slowing of vehicles, when they're trying to make that right turn.
Any other questions regarding Springer before we move on to Grant?
I don't have a question, just a comment,
Please.
that, thank you for working on this, because, as you can see in the Google Maps, and at least on paper, I think it's a huge improvement. So I think, I just wanted to say that it's not always a question, but I would, looks like I'm not. Thank you.
And I'm already getting positive feedback and few requests to modify slightly, but overall, the comments I've received is pretty positive.
Have you heard from the local residents on Springer as well?
No, but I've heard complaints from the drivers saying that they're making me slow down.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, Steve, ready to move on to Grant?
So basically, it's the same philosophy as what we have already done on Springer. We're actually going and delineating a bicycle lane. Where we can't add additional that buffer, we're trying to add it as much as we can. On Grant, there are sections of the road itself where we cannot have the buffer because the road itself is not wide enough. So we're trying to accommodate as much as we can. The road itself is already narrow to begin with. It's already at 11 feet. trying to reduce it down to a 10.5 is not gonna really make that much of a difference. So we're just keeping it at 11 feet. But areas that the bicyclist has to cross the intersection, just like what we have done in Springer, we're putting in the green stripes to denote the bicycle crossing. We're also putting in bicycle crossing on the green striping on all intersection. So as you can see, at all intersection, we're putting in the bicycle lanes. These areas right here where it's extra wide, I still haven't talked to the consultant yet, but most likely we're probably gonna put a delineators there. Just so that the cars cannot try to cut it short and try to get into the travel lane. We have to force them to come all the way out before they can make that right turn. So at this location right here, oh, I'm sorry. So at these locations right here, I probably will be instructing the consultants to put delineators all the way through, just so that the cars do not try to do this, like I've already been seeing. So it forces them to come all the way out and then make a right turn. The same thing again on this one, when they're making that right turn, just so that they don't cut through the bicycle lane. Again, delineators in this general area.
At Oak, you've got the west side marked off as if there was a road entrance there, when it's actually just a driveway
On Oak.
at Oak.
This one right here.
No, Oak Avenue.
Yeah, this one right here.
Think so.
That's a driveway.
Opposite on what's the top of the page.
Yeah.
Oh, on this side?
Yeah. You got
The west- the west side.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, we'll have it corrected.
Mhm.
So basically, it's gonna be consistent throughout, just like the treatment that we did for Springer is the same thing that we're gonna be doing out in Grant.
Question?
Hmm?
So you're going with 11-foot right lane here.
Yeah, I mean,
Why
if,
not? Why
if it
not?
does not, excuse me?
Why not? Maintain 10.5 that we did on Springer.
Because there's no real benefit of trying to narrow that road down. That half a foot is not really gonna make that much of a difference, when, to try to give the bicyclist that much more space.
Okay.
So there's no reason to really change the striping pattern.
How much of a stretch is at or beyond 11 feet? Is it like this half a block from on Grant up to Fremont, approaching Fremont? Is that the area that we're talking about? Just trying to understand how much of a stretch.
It's pretty much gonna be the whole thing,
Oh, the whole thing, okay.
because existing is already 11.
Oh, I see, yeah, I see on that.
Yeah, so trying to reduce it down to 10.5. There's no additional benefit.
Got it. What's the delta on, like, we looked at the other stretch of the road that you took down in Senate Town, where you got more additional lane
On Springer?
width on Springer? Yeah,
The Springer is pretty much all the way, it's gonna be 10.5.
Yeah.
And so depending on how the existing roads were.
Yeah.
Some areas were 11, some were, more. So we're trying to make it as much as consistently 10.5 and make it that narrow field.
Yeah. I guess part of what I was asking is. You get down to 10.5 on Springer,
Mhm.
but you felt like, what was the rationale for treating it differently? Like, you felt like there was more bang for the buck in Springer, maybe because it was easier to get it down for some.
Well,
like,
the
generic
width
factors.
of the existing road itself is wide enough that allowed us to do that.
Exactly,
Not to mention, it was already close to that 10.5 anyway. So by reducing it down a little bit, now it allowed us to create that 2-foot buffer.
Yeah. got it, okay,
But out on Grant, just reducing it does not allow us, because the existing road is not wide.
not right, yeah, got it, yes, that makes total sense.
Steven, can you, on Orange Road and Oak Avenue, where Commissioner Lee pointed out that there's not a house there, there's perpendicular or diagonal black lines, is that a crosswalk? Or is that another
Yes, it's a crosswalk.
indicator?
I think that is a crosswalk.
Yes, sir. There's a, traffic signal. And I think
I believe that is crosswalk, and, like I stated, this is just a draft. If, if that is, okay, all the new crosswalk we're putting in are gonna be ladders.
Yeah.
So, right now, they're putting the minimum, which is the parallel lines, so my comment to them will be put in ladders.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding Grant Road? I think we covered both sides. I think you started talking about the front diagram. Anything to mention, Stephen, on the back? Or we fully addressed all the
Yeah.
elements?
I have no other comment for that,
We,
unless there's any questions.
yeah, we've gone through all our comments, all the questions, any comments commissioners would like to make regarding either Branch or Springer Road and the microservicing and mill overlay?
I just have a question on general on the mill and overlay and on Springer. Any surprises or it's as expected?
On existing roads, I mean, what we just finished, or,
One that was Springer or just finished on Springer.
no, pretty straightforward. Only thing we really struggle with is, trying to do the work without shutting down the shopping center, so that was pretty difficult. So, yeah, we did a lot of, some weekend works to minimize their impact, as well as, we were trying to do it on holidays, so that it wasn't impacting the school traffic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any final comments? We don't have any public comments for this particular discussion item, so we then move on. Thank you, Stephen, for your presentation and sharing with us the work that you've done and that you continue to try to do. I guess my last, in closing, is there a timeline or a date for completion that's targeted for this work?
Right now, I'm hoping to get it done within the next 2 months, because I would like to get the construction started in June.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion item number 3, the Complete Streets Master Plan and Safe Routes to School status. This is a report from Commissioner Lee to present your survey results.
The too long, don't read summary is, things look pretty good. We've done about half of things listed, and I found no glaring safety items. Of course, there are some nits that could be covered. Getting to the detail, I would try not to take 30 minutes here, so, basically, methodology here is pretty straightforward. I went to each of the schools, I rode around and took all of the items directly off the master plan, and then reported on each of those as what I can see. I marked each item as either done, partial, or incomplete. Before Stephen jumps on me, I don't know if things were not supposed to be done, or if things were designed and out there. There are some requirements. Consider doing this. Well, if I didn't see it, I don't know if we considered it or not. In fact, it's counted as incomplete. I did find a couple of cases where I think RFPs would be a good thing. There were some crosswalks on busy streets, don't have them. That's probably the highest priority thing that I could come up with. I was amused to find that we have a very high variation of things that happened across the various schools. As you can see, there's some very low percentage schools and some very high percentage schools. I don't know what happened, but that's where it is. Are there any questions?
I first of all just want to also say thank you, Tony, for doing this. I guess like maybe I can hold a more of a comment until we're done with questions. Yeah, exactly. But
Comments first, and
I'll have some for
public comments and questions.
see if others have questions first.
I have a question. Once again, thank you for doing that, and can you just say a couple words about how you think the work that you've done can help with and I know I'm creeping into another topic, but on the work plan, what we talked about was prioritizing the top 5 routes to school for graphic content. Do you think the work that you did in your survey of the, CSMP can provide some insight as to how we might go about doing that?
Well, yeah, it should help at least, avoid us spending time arguing about things that are already done. Yeah, and I think if you take a look at some of the comments, it will be pretty obvious what's not done and what's kind of high priority. Again, for the most part, things are pretty good. I learned a lot in doing this. I didn't realize the parallel transverse white lines were actually a key clear area. We've got a lot of those where words aren't there, but the lines are.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm just
Sorry.
curious, yeah, thank you, also lots of work. I'm curious if you did most of your observations during, school drop-off time, just curious.
No, actually, very carefully, no, I did not want to do that because I would be in the way.
No.
And also, I tended to do this late in the afternoon. My methodology was to ride my bike out there and ride around schools.
Tony, I have a quick question, yeah. You mentioned seeing sort of high amount of variation across, it sounds like elements that were put in place, you know, in one school versus another school, and that could make sense based on circumstances or conditions or the layout of the schools. I'm curious if you noticed any either elements or any just like circumstances, maybe safer or unsafe that stuck out to you, as things that look like improvements, or you mentioned some areas few and far between, thankfully, where there might have been some safety issues. Yeah, was there anything that really stuck out to you about the elements? You mentioned RRFBs in places. Yeah, anything else?
That's the number one
Yeah.
thing that stuck out. And there's not a lot, there's like 2 instances of that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought things were pretty good shape.
That's great.
Based on your observations and looking at the completion status that you had listed out from the various schools, go back to them. Can you give your opinion on, kind of the visual understanding of like, this feels like a safe school versus an unsafe school, like looking at the most completed percentage being Almond and the least completed being somewhere around Covington perhaps, or Egan? Can you explain your perspective on those?
Again, with the, the things that stood out are the 2 cases where we need RRFBs. But other than that, I did not see any significant safety issues. There's nits here and there, but nothing that I would consider major.
Awesome. Great, yeah, I'll have. See if I can interpret this into a question, but to Steve's point as well, I'm definitely interested in understanding ways that we can use what you've learned here, towards thinking about where there are bumps or gaps, or just thinking about sort of efforts that have taken place over the past few years since the Complete Streets Master Plan has been in place and these safe routes to school were developed. Think about where we come with the work that's done and where we still have yet to go, and translate this into sort of continued progress in these sort of high priority areas. I think you already kind of give us your thoughts on most of that. If there's anything else above that, but we can also just talk about it in the broader context of the work on it too.
Question for
Question over to comments.
Stephen, I have a question for you. Have you had a chance to review the document?
No, I have not. No, I really appreciate what you have done. I know that there's certain things in the Complete Street Master Plan that recommends, but there's an engineering study that needs to go with it. So for me to go through all the documentation we do have, which is not the best in the world. Prior staff has not really done extensive documentation as to why they didn't do certain things. So basically, every time we have a project, I'm gonna be looking at what has been provided to see if there's something that is missing. So what are we gonna do? Do we need to implement it, or is there a study that needs to be done? So there's some benefits to a study that has already been completed and we will have an impact in the future.
Any final commissioner comments before I open up the public comment? Then the first on.
That's good. She's got some kids.
You got it, skip ahead, put you in the bottom,
Yeah.
Dina, welcome. Thank you for coming.
I just have a really quick, I guess it's a comment. It's about Distal Drive on El Camino. It is a safe route to school way to get to school. My children ride their bikes on that route. I know that we've discussed this route in the past, a couple months ago, and we decided we're gonna revisit it again, but we're going to eventually mark some spots red to allow the traffic to flow. However, that doesn't address the safety, like that addresses a portion of the safety issues, but it is really unsafe out there. I know that many of you have visited it, just all the cars that are backed up, the kids walking in the streets, the bikers in the streets. So I allow my kids to ride their bikes to school, but we go super early in the morning to avoid the chaos. And now I'm encountering cars that are speeding. And so I'm out there policing these cars, like, please slow down. This morning, there was a van that was like speeding full speed, kids on the road. This is supposed to be safe routes. I'm like, I hear these improvements and I'm actually really happy to see what's happening on Springer and Grant, but why can't we make these changes for this street? Like, why are these children not going to be safe? I'm surprised a disaster hasn't happened out there. And I would like to see some sort of improvement, not just a couple. I mean, I understand that the community wants to save parking spots and they want to be able to park, but like, what is the priority? People's lives or a parking spot? We need to come to some sort of medium that allows the safety for our children and, people to park, or maybe we could have like temporary parking or something, but I don't think that parking should be the priority. I think our children should be the priority. Thank you.
I'm just gonna make a note that, while the topic was safe routes, this would be more of a general comment, not related to the section number 3. So thank you, Dina, for your comments. The route package, anyone have any questions for Dina?
Just like, which specific parts do your children ride on?
They ride on Distal to Marriage, to Jordan, to, I believe it's Portola. And if anyone's ever ridden that street, it is a disaster.
Starting on El Camino.
Starting on Distal.
Commissioner, if I may point, Commissioner, this is not on the agenda, so we cannot talk about it. I just had a question.
Just trying to ask a couple of questions now.
Yeah, we won't discuss it next.
If I could ask one more quick one too, Dina. Thank you for coming. Thanks to the family for coming. You said you referenced the, making the parking spots red and removing some of the spots. You said that's not going to get us all the way there. And I think, I heard you maybe reference some of the work that's being done on Springer, maybe changing lane dimension or geometry or the other safety measures. Is there anything specifically that you see that you think parking changes don't address fully, or that you think other sort of measures would address, if you have anything specific that you want to?
I mean, I'd love to see bike lanes out there, honestly. Like, I'd love to see bike lanes, and if it's not just, if the community doesn't want bike lanes on both sides, perhaps just one side, a two-way bike lane to allow the kids to ride safely. No one's safe out there, especially walking on the sidewalks, walking in the streets. Something has to change out there.
Thank you.
And maybe if that's not possible, like some speed bumps or maybe another stop sign to slow down the traffic.
Yeah.
That would be another measure that would help.
Next up for the item on the agenda number 3, Jim Wing.
Let's see, for the record, I'm Jim Wayne on Littleton Road. I'm here to ask you to make as the #1 priority for fiscal 26-27 the short block between Kiffin between Gablin and El Monte. This is a very high flow of pedestrians on this street. And they're all on the so-called north side. And there really isn't anything good for them to walk on except the edge of the travel lane. And basically, there has been a hazard that was added last fall. California Water Company is shifting their parts supply zone to the Giffen area. And so therefore, every morning around 8 o'clock, there are, I counted 3 on my count, but it could be more. They're going there to stop and pick up parts before they go to their job. And that is another safety hazard for them because the kids are walking kind of on the edge of the travel lane. Staff has gone ahead and deferred this for many years because of cost, rightfully so. But I wonder if they know that in the late 80s, PG&E took out about 4 feet on the north side, all the way to replace the gas line. Also in the early 90s, over on the other side, they took out another 5 feet for storm drain, which means the concrete that's underneath the pavement is getting down to be a much smaller number. If staff would do a detailed design of that, we could come up with maybe a cost that we could hang the head on. I realize it's not going to be cheap, but when you really look at it, the pedestrian traffic flow is, there's, in terms of just students, there's about 23 students that go to the crossing guard at El Monte. And then there is another group of the parents, the students in the 1st and 2nd grade, who also go along, and they have their siblings with them. Siblings are hard to control, they run everywhere. And then they turn around and double that. Overall, we're seeing 54 pedestrians moving one way or the other on that thing I counted for an hour and a half, but it's all in that same time zone. And traffic is not a terrible issue there, but it's the trucks for the California Water that it should really trigger it. And unfortunately, whatever the cost turns out to be, I know Steve feels is pretty high, but there's not as much cement under there as you think. It's been torn out. So if you do a detailed design, you can get a real cost, and then it's something that's got to be done. I actually do walk that around noontime, and yes, a truck tried to take me out, and I'm still standing. But it's I can tolerate that, but it's but for the children, and particularly the little siblings, trying to hold those two and do it's a real challenge. It really is a high priority that hasn't had proper attention forever, so to speak. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all you do. When I look at this intersection, and I know it well because I have 2 kids at Covington and we go there probably every day. Yeah, I would love to, again, hear maybe some more from you on, I think I've heard about, what you experience to see as the dangers of that stretching of the intersection there. Or do you have any more specific thoughts, and apologies if you already said some of that, but around measures that would make it safer to you? Would it be like an extension of sidewalks? Would it be some physical buffer there? Is there something you think would help in particular? Yeah.
They're essential.
Yeah.
There is a shoulder.
Yeah.
And the shoulder has a few things that could be moved on it.
Mhm.
Not many, only one person typically parks on that shoulder. There's driveways, so you don't necessarily have to offer parking. No, that's a debatable issue, but there's overgrowth, there's 2 small trees that have to be taken out, type of thing. But if you had just a basic pathway that had separation from the street, that is probably the basic requirement that would work for that.
Yeah.
And it's basically just it's a separation from the street. And you do have a shoulder to work with to some extent.
If you had like a concrete or an asphalt berm of some kind, if you know what I'm talking about, like a raised thing like that, an element, would that create like a physical separation that would,
The answer is yes,
Yeah.
if it's got some good white paint on it.
yeah.
So To give it visibility,
Yeah,
yeah, tricks like that.
Okay.
But it's, this has been going on for many years.
Yeah.
And it may sacrifice how, due to the cost, how many other programs you can do.
Sure.
But it's been deferred, I've been fighting for it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Gotten nowhere.
Absolutely.
Kind
And,
of
you know,
thing.
just to be clear, you're talking about from Gavilon where that turns into Giffen to where it hits El Monte. Is
Right.
that- Yeah,
If you include the intersection, it's 500 feet. It's short.
Yeah.
But it's dangerous.
okay.
And keep in mind that whole area in there, that whole between Tyndall, Lassen and Gablin. That is the highest density zone in Los Altos. And it's affordable housing. So what you're getting is young families
Yeah.
to do it. And there's no sensible way to drive from there.
Mhm.
It doesn't work.
Many families walk there every day. Yeah, as you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yeah. And the number's 54.
And there's also a lot of, I mean, you mentioned,
I'm gonna move us
yeah,
along.
exactly, yeah, absolutely, okay. Plenty could be said, but appreciate everything.
Okay,
Thank
well, I certainly encourage you, make it happen somehow.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Do you have a question for him?
No, I don't know.
No, I'm waiting for comments on,
Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna make a record, while his comment was related to State Crossing School, it was not related to item number 3, so I just made a comment on the comment card for us to note. But moving on to comments from commissioners regarding Commissioner Lee's report, please.
So, and it actually dovetails into both Jim Wing and, the last presenter before Jim talked about. Which is that, I really believe that since the, complete street master plan was written, that there's been significant development in the Southwest. And, school populations have changed, in some cases fairly significantly, that impacts or should impact how we prioritize things if we have a criteria to do that. And I think, one example that was given today, and I'm not gonna get down into the weeds on any specific. But one example is District Drive. We know what Stephen had proposed earlier in 2025 and what came out of that. And that was really a result of the, affordable housing project on one level, right, because we have all these new families that will be moving in, and we have construction going on right now. But it was also a result of the increased population of Los Altos High School and all the kids that are now coming from the north side that weren't there when the complete streets master plan was written. And so that route to school, is now very different in terms of its safety than it was all those years ago. I think we also have a situation, I want to thank Jim and the other speakers that come here because they bring it to our attention where there are issues. There are streets where people don't come here. They write letters to the council, maybe the letter came, they wrote a letter 2 years ago and nothing happened, and they never followed up on it. And if you don't have somebody bring it to our attention, I mean, for example, where the charter schools are now, there's a lot of traffic that there used to be on streets that are safe routes to school. Charities and I'm not gonna talk about that because it's still in the weeds. But that never comes before the commission because those people, they talk to me when I'm walking around on that street, but they don't come here and present them. Just because here they are. But there's a lot more traffic, there's a lot more kids. And that, I think that can be happening in other places. And so what I don't know how to address is how we as a commission can open up our blinders so that we have a wider view as we look at what's most important, rather than what's the noisiest issue that comes in front of us. And, maybe there isn't a good way to do
I'm
that.
gonna ask you to direct the comments specifically to the report, to the item, and we can get into other topics in.
So, I guess where I'm going is that, you know, Commissioner Lee has looked at this more than anybody has, and thank you for that. And I don't know from your perspective, from the audits that you've done, driving around, biking around, whatever. Am I imagining, problems that aren't there? Or is this something that as a commission, we should look at as we go through validating, the top priorities?
In the evaluating priorities, again, you know, we're in pretty good shape. There are no gaping holes. And so the priorities are going to be subjective. And obviously, there's going to be. Hopefully, this is just base work, so that we don't all have to stand on a street corner and argue.
So you're comfortable that we are in pretty good shape in terms of where we are in evaluating priorities of where we need to, what we need to address in 2026?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
2027.
I think we were in pretty good shape. You know, this is safety. You can always do better, you can always do more. And there's always limits in budget. So discussing what we're gonna do is going to be an interesting subjective experience.
Any other comments for Commissioner Lee regarding this report? I'd just like to say thank you for the work you've done. I think this will help set us up for some planning that we have coming forth, just in this meeting, but also in the future. And I think it's, like all of us taking on a passion project, but ultimately, you know, diving in and doing the work that some citizens do, but as commissioners, you know, have a mandate to do this particular work, but credit to you for going out there, spending time, bringing the information to us. So thank you.
You're most welcome, and thank you, it was a lot of fun.
That actually reminded me, Seth, if I could jump on that, one more comment, really briefly, just on that same point. Really appreciate, Tony, that you went out and did this. I don't want folks to appreciate the amount of work that you put into this. With each of these schools, you have to really put in a bunch of shoe leather to get around and see where these elements are or are not, so thank you. And then just want to go back to the original exercise that we went through last year around this great resource of this complete streets master plan and trying to get as much value as we can. Los Altos is not a huge community, right? It's in terms of just like number of people, size, you know, relative to other communities around here. And obviously we've had changes in, you know, folks working for the city and, you know, we've lost some institutional knowledge. And that's part of why this work I saw as really important, for this mission and for us to be able to like really extract all the value we can from all this effort and work that went into the master plan and City Cross School and all the work that the city has done over the years to make these intersections and road elements better and safer for folks. So thanks again, Tony, for helping us make progress against that. And I personally feel like we have a better sense of where we stand now than we did last year. And I think that's really helpful, and I think it's going to help us have a successful 2026. So thanks again. That's it.
Moving on to discussion item number 4, the 2026 work plan. So as you will see before, the ad hoc subcommittee created a draft for us to review collectively to give a quick summary from how we got here. You'll see this particular document will be 2026 CSC 2026 work plan. These are the ideas that were all shared with us in our working session last November. Broken up into 4 sections: the work in progress items that were on hold from last year, our project ideas for this year, and then the larger ideas of the goals for 2026. If you, on the second page on the back side, you'll see items number 9, 10, and 11 were crossed out. While the feedback was appreciated, these are items that are items not to be taken out of the complete streets. So, having taken all of your input, Clara, Wes and myself met 3 times, to synthesize this data, and create ultimately a proposed idea. And so how it rolls out is the following. Using the same format as last year, you'll see we currently have 4 goals that we bucket these items into. The 4 goals are complete streets, master plan stewardship, so doing things like Tony did and other ideas. Number 2 is improve pedestrian and multimodal paths. 3 would be address public safety locations and concerns, similar to what we just heard from public comment. And then number 4 is manage capital improvement projects. I'm not gonna read the 10 projects verbatim that we had identified. You'll see that these are top level projects with sub projects beneath them. There's some easy themes that overlay on things that we think we can work on. And then the subsequent columns, the assigned completion date, those are just listed as is. We haven't assigned dates to those. We haven't listed the priority of low, medium, or high. The source of the information, whether that's the complete streets master plan, safe routes to school, or general plan. We don't talk a lot about the general plan here, or at least I haven't in my tenure, but it's something that we'll be referring to. And then the status of these, the assignment, whether that's complete street submission and city staff. I think all of these have an overlay. And then the notes are ideas or additional anecdotes that were shared on the sticky notes that people have written down. So it's really useful. I think we got it to a good place, given everyone's feedback, but of course, this is the proposed next phase of this. And before I move us along in that piece, I wanted to see if Clara or Wes have any comments or things that you would like to add in the process that we undertook.
I think you nailed a lot of it, Scott. I thought it was a really good exercise. I think you sort of mentioned this, but I think one of the things we wanted to do this year was really focus on where we as a commission can make an impact. We know that we have great expertise like at the city, and we're not trying to duplicate that or just oversee that. It's sort of, can we bring common sense? Can we bring sort of like, sort of regular person, lay person perspective to some of these streets and sort of like safety issues. Be really realistic about where we can make an impact and what we can do as a small sort of part-time commission and really try to get bang for our buck with the things that we focus on things that are timely, right? I think there were a few things where we realized over the course of 2025 that we're dependent on other things happening that might not happen, and so really focus on things that we think we can hit over the course of 2026. And I think that what you see here is largely, that's what shaped this. And so hopefully that comes through when folks look at it, and we've done a little bit of that baseline sort of legwork that helps the commission, have a good menu of things that we can choose from and focus on. I don't know if there's anything high level other than that. We can obviously talk through some of the specifics. That was all I really had. Yeah, Steve.
Can I ask a really quick question just on interpreting this?
We're the question section, I guess, before we get into figuring out how do we collectively prioritize these and.
So first of all, thank you. I think it's terrific work. And it's really comprehensive. Can you just help me understand how the anticipated completion column and the status column works? In other words, what, on any given item, what do we take away from if something says Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, does that mean everything here is pushed to 2027?
Yeah, and to help, these are just the drop-down selectors from the Google Sheet that we were using. So we will select whether it's in Q1 of this year, Q2, Q3, these are calendar months, or moving it into 2027. The prioritization, do we prioritize this as high, medium, or low? And then for the status, are we planning? Is this in a planned phase, ideation, in progress, or completed or not?
So basically, the anticipated completion and the status columns are the choices that we have to agree on based on how we prioritize things.
Yeah,
There's nothing there that actually states where they were in 2026, so that we know whether we're pushing something out or we're pulling it in.
correct. Yeah, we did not create a dependency or some connector from the prior year. Coming at, I guess, some of these things will happen naturally, like for instance, number 7 project, right? The San Antonio Road redesign and revision, that will come up, but as for timing, TBD from our side.
Right.
Other ones like number 9, review and approve of the annual road resurfacing. That's something that we will review with city staff and then ultimately proceed forward with. So the thing that's missing, I think, from this vision is a calendar timeline of where some of these lay and how we actually put resources behind them. So that isn't something that we took on at this point, but I think by the subcommittee working, or when myself working with Stephen and Art, having that overview of their year will allow us to slot in some of these pieces and be thoughtful about how we use our time in meetings.
Right.
So it's, as I said, it's kind of this is the next phase of the distillation from our last meeting, and hopefully with discussion, if these are the right topics and we can get into that, and this is what we want to work on, and we can begin to figure out kind of the subsequent meeting, here's a calendar, here's our timing priorities.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments?
We have a question.
Please. Any questions? I'm sorry. Question.
Under that anticipated completion, that's just gonna be the target this year, because every single item on here has the same completion.
That's what we're talking about now.
So-
one of the goals,
We're gonna try and narrow that down.
EV exercise, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The same thing with prior, because it's hard to read that high, medium, low. Okay.
I didn't want to leave those columns, those 3 columns blank. I just wanted to show you the items that we need to select over time, and then as we did in last year's meetings, we provided you a refreshed view of this every meeting, so that way you can see where we are and how we're tracking. Go. Any other questions? The questions about the projects and the categorization of how we took your feedback and placed it into categories. We hoped that we captured the voice accurately, the ideas that were shared. Let us, read a little bit. That's a good idea.
We have been into more comments into the parking structure they want to do in downtown behind.
I think that falls, if I'm not mistaken, for Stephen or Art, I think that falls either the zoning or planning commission, but outside of our commission.
We have nothing to say about it.
You as a private citizen, you can go to the planning commission and have it put, by all means, but yeah, we don't have.
Everybody, a lot of people complain to me about
You can please point them to the planning commission as they want to, rush through, which is great, yeah.
it. Or is it?
Yeah, new mayor, yeah.
Any other questions?
How do you plan on,
Yeah, we can move into, I guess, the next phase of comments, and I'm gonna kind of break down informality of this, right? We can kind of iterate and work through this, but in
I
the,
just want to say thank you for subcommittee for putting this together. I think
I
you captured.
1 second, Steph.
Go ahead. What's that?
Any question?
Yes.
So thank you. Couple of things I wanted to ask was, so the 2026 goals were listed in the document, right? You think all of that was captured in here, in this list?
And we did our best to include the 2025 work in progress items on hold, and the 2026 project items listed as such, and find a bucket for them.
Yeah.
Buckets that would capture
Okay.
multi themes, but if you have a suggestion, you think.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure because we had listed these 4 goals. I saw this document. And then the other 4 goals here, so,
Well, the
Yeah.
4 goals are on the first column,
okay.
goal 1, 2.
Yeah, that's why I was making sure, because there seems to be an additional one here called managed capital improvement projects.
So to your point, to your clarification, so the 2026 goals were one of the areas that's very sticky, and so those are the ideas of like what do we want to accomplish?
Yeah.
I think the traffic calming mechanisms would fall underneath address, goal 3, address public safety locations of concern. So being able to look at traffic calming mechanisms within, how do we, call it, let's see if I don't say.
So it's not a map.
It's not a,
Well, goals here was before the goals.
Yeah, it's not changing.
correct, they're not.
I thought they would.
So, yeah, so that's exactly the question I had was, so the intention there is, those 5 locations we were thinking about identifying is in lieu of traffic calming measures. That's what's driving those 5 locations.
Yeah, so we had put, I mean, the process had brought the traffic, like, project number 8, identifying fixed top 5 unsafe streets.
Yeah.
So that would, wow, then maybe traffic calming mechanisms fit into various areas, right? In the end, that was like the.
So that's sort of those are collaborative projects.
Yeah, some crossover, right? And if we're-
Yeah,
that's
so it's
it.
good, it's worth the note, so we know that that's what we're working on. Doesn't go through that. Note that they go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, we're putting these goals on that. He said it's confusing.
Or they-
So if you, I guess the hope was underneath notes, you'll see for number 8, it says traffic calming mechanisms, mini roundabouts, fold outs. The goal, right, was like, how do we bring projects forth that are traffic calming in nature? That goal, project number 8 captured that. In the notes, we tried to capture, like, great, here's the removal of slip lanes. I think we're seeing that today with the example on Grant Road. Target locations and so forth. So
Yeah.
hopefully that, if it doesn't, we
Yeah.
can.
The reason is because the other one, they're saying, let's see if there's any AB 43 mechanism.
Mhm.
And, I'm just, there may be too many things we're taking on, maybe there are 5 different, those are 5 locations, and these are 5 locations, maybe too many, so see if we can target and, accomplish a few stuff. I mean, there are 5 plus 5 or 10 locations we're talking about. And I want to get staff's comment on that, that's a lot of locations, a lot of work.
You mean between number 6 and number
6
8?
and 8, yeah,
Gotcha.
project 6 and project 8.
Yeah, so I guess to clarify the difference between project 6 and project 8, and 6 being identify the top locations for speed review, leveraging citywide survey, right? Those locations are, if we're gonna say, great, there's 50 spots in the city that have been identified as challenging spaces or challenging road segments based off speed. And so we're saying, great, okay, we're going to,
Pick 5 up from there.
pick 5 from that, right? Is we kind of overlap into the review and approval of the annual road resurfacing, like, how do we address that piece? I think some of these have multi-tiered versus the other one is like, we're having public comment.
Mhm.
We know these
Okay,
areas,
gotcha.
we got Tony's report that says like,
Yeah.
places are dangerous, so.
Okay. Alright.
But, good call, right?
Yeah. And then, e-bike safety and programming that we have listed here. Are we proposing to do anything more than what the ordinance we did last year, or it's just about education?
It could, I mean, this is, the project itself, I guess, is that, but these sub goals or sub activities, the note that was made from one of the commissioners was encourage biking to downtown. And that was like, okay, how do we include that for e-bike programming and safety, but beyond like what the new city policy is, I mean, I'm hearing stuff on NPR at a federal level regarding e-bike safety programs, state level, we have our own programs. It's up for us to decide if do we want to lean into this further, or do we feel like this is enough for us to, identify something and I don't know, determine what that project looks like, but it wasn't clarified in the sticky notes beyond kind of e-bikes.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand is what we as a commission can accomplish this.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need, we don't need to take on projects, it's
Yeah.
just obviously the things that we think are.
And some of these projects might happen anyway, right? Like the implementation of the ordinance or education, maybe it's already happening and there isn't much more definitely.
And so it could be, if it's something that we even want to include, but it would be a low priority, something that is there, and if we see something coming to our purview over the next. 11 months, then we could say, great, the police officers are doing said program, or there's Bike Month coming up and certain organizations lean into us and think, okay, great, let's support them, so.
Also, I just wanted to make a comment again, March 10th is when we're doing joint meeting with the city council, so we're gonna make sure we have final. But usually, I think, the city clerk usually wants about 2 or 3 weeks before then to have it, so, as part of the packet for that, so just FYI on that, so make sure that.
Is this our last meeting for that?
We have another meeting at 20, but it's less than 2 weeks, so we might have to set it in before then, so. I'll check with the city clerk, I'll check with her and see when we get the final, what kind of meeting, so.
I'll check. Because we might have another opportunity, but, we might not have, I think it's less than 2 weeks before that.
Other thoughts, comments, challenges? Suggestions?
Going to project number 2 is kind of a carryover from last year, sort of. Correct, the wayfinding and so on. We didn't really make much progress other than, I think a couple of our commissioners, I think, sort of went around and looked at it and see if there's something we can do about it now.
Correct.
The reason why I'm kind of questioning some of these things is just to say if we can tighten up. What can we tighten up is to what we can accomplish this year.
For sure.
So, do we have, I'm kind of not 100% sure how we go about accomplishing it. So do we have an idea of what work we might take on to do that? To make some progress towards that?
If you wanna say something, I might weigh on that one, Suresh, but I feel like associated with that kind of idea a little bit, one thing I think I realized just going around town and having that thought in my head over the past year, if nothing else, is that I think wayfinding is helpful. I don't think there's much question in my mind that, sort of route finding and signage is helpful, like as a cyclist, as someone trying to go around town, I think it's safety promoting, I think it plays a role in getting people onto the routes and keeping them on the routes that we've identified as a city are safe. And I suspect that there are gaps in the wayfinding and the signage across the city as of now. Even though in looking across the city, it was better in a lot of places than I thought it was. So I wanna, not casting any aspersions. I actually think it's better than most people might guess. But I've been thinking as well about just what you said, which are, what are the ways that we can pull this into practical work that we, can make happen or get a good chance of having happen this year, maybe also in coming years. I would love to maybe we can ask, Stephen as well about, as we prioritize streets and as we have just like a baseline program for improving streets in connection with street resurfacing, but with other work that the city does, do we presently, or to what extent do we presently think about those things? And to what extent do we potentially think more about those things as we're working on those intersections? So maybe I'll park that and I'll ask it, more concretely for you, Stephen. Another thing I wanted to mention is we've heard folks talk about specific streets like Dissel. Steve made the point that, we have streets that we know are higher priority based on changing population, increasing population, housing developments, traffic patterns, increasing student population, low south side. I'm rambling, but the point is we have routes like Dissel that are funnels for kids. And it's my view that we should build on the safe routes to school that have already been put in place and published. And maybe look as a commission at, let's identify, and we could stack this however we want, right? I don't think we should crack off, okay, we're gonna do this for every school in the district for this year, because I don't think that's realistic. But maybe we could start with like Los Altos High, and we could say, do we know folks, for example, come in from Mountain View? What's the one route that we expect them to take or would prefer for them to take? And then look at that and say, along that network, do we have clear indications that folks, we're directing folks or indicating that that is a safe route? So, I think that would dovetail a lot with a bunch of the other things that I think we're hearing and thinking are priorities for the commission. So maybe that's just like a start of a response, Suresh, as well as asking another question.
Okay.
I'll let that, yeah.
So I guess I want to ask the subcommittee or working pair or whatever.
Subcommittee, three of us.
Steve, can I, before you ask your question, it looks like you had a question for Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna ask
Maybe
Steve,
you have the response and
and
then-
maybe that made sense to you, but maybe I'll ask it a little more squarely. Right now, when you guys are thinking about safety elements that we put in place in connection with work that we're doing on the streets every year, to what extent are you thinking about, let's say specifically like signs that say bike route or safe route to school, and making sure that those are present where appropriate, where it makes sense, not just putting them up to put them up, right? But where it makes sense to like let people know that this is a bike route or a safe route to school. Because I do see that across Los Altos. I'm curious how much that's part of your existing mindset when we're doing that work. And do you think it would be helpful for us to maybe consider that more if we're not currently considering it? And especially along what we were talking about where, you know, I think when you look at the safe routes to school, we could look at this, at the Los Altos High one. If we want to single out particular ways to get to and from the school, not every street and intersection around the school, but particular routes. Does that jump out to you as something that would be evaluated based on your knowledge of the city and the patterns that people take?
The patterns that we currently have, to answer your question,
Yeah.
candidly, yes, it would be beneficial.
Thank you.
Okay, the reason why it's beneficial is because the bicycle routes that has been installed in the city has been piecemealed.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, you know, what I said last year was, I'm trying to complete whole streets instead of sections of the street. So,
100%.
as you can see in Springer, we're trying to make that whole section of us, a bike route. So until we are able to do that, a wayfinder would be beneficial. But in the long run, I'm hoping that as we build these bicycle lanes, they have all the connectivities.
Yeah.
That the wayfinder would not be as beneficial, because as you drive on the run road, hey, I see another bike route, go down that road.
Yeah.
So until that time, yes, it would be beneficial. Now, to go through and do it throughout the whole city right now, I don't know how we could logistically do that.
I personally, and I can't, obviously can't and won't speak for the commission, but I wouldn't recommend that to the city. You know, I would say, let's crack off things where we think we can make the biggest impact, maybe, you know, year by year, and even tied into work that we're already prepared to do, right? We can look out around streets and intersections and crossings where we're already doing the work and say, one additional level of analysis. Would it be helpful for a cyclist or a pedestrian here to see a sign that says, this is the route that we expect bicycle heads to go, right? And I have seen that in places like Palo Alto, and I've talked to officials in Palo Alto about the good bike networks that they've done. And I personally, when I'm traveling as a cyclist, I do benefit from that. Even almost more so when you've got a really strong network, even a complete route, because I can get directed to that route and stay on that route, right? And there's visual signs like bike lanes and paint that I think are good, but I think wording helps too. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. And I don't know, Suresh, you have anything else? I know Steve, you had something.
No, that's good.
I do, and it's a higher level, which is that. You guys did a ton of work on this. I'm not sure what you want to get out of the commission tonight. To move this forward. You know, I mean, I'm looking around the room now and I see a lot of commissioners who are not sure, maybe I'm intuiting the wrong thing, but you know, what they're engaging.
Yep.
Right now. So what would you like to get from us as a commission tonight to move this forward?
Well, I think there's two things. One that's come to mind, I think maybe I failed. We didn't ask the right question of getting a city calendar of the items that are already before us to help us align to their calendar, right? Because some things require our review, which is a part of this. And the other things are things that we would like to either take on and move forward or ask the city to modify existing plans, right? And saying, hey, we want to create a more comprehensive bike network, which includes these facets of a bike network to Wesley's point. So I guess there's that missing piece, which makes this a little hard to answer your question. But to get us to a decision point, I guess is the challenge that we're facing. So I'm looking for collective knowledge and wisdom on this, or to help us either strike out some of the things that we feel like are too much, or begin to organize our thoughts in a way that will help us, you know, determine if this is the things that we want to do. These are the ideas, right? These were all the ideas distilled down into buckets. So the notes on the side are like the granular pieces of things that people want. I'm open to suggestions or ideas on how to distill this.
Yeah, I think we also like to see, I'm not sure if staff, Stephen, and have taken a look at the list. Have you had a chance to review it? And before we kind of get into discussion, it'd be good to get your comments at a high level on this list, so that will help us guide, you know, what we can prioritize and whatnot. Have you had a chance to look at it, and you have any general comments on this list? staff.
Oh.
Well, there's a couple of things already that should be addressed, you know.
I know.
Well, so number 9, you know, that's definitely, you should be bad because we always do that.
Correct, yeah.
So that's definitely good. And San Antonio project, I will keep that since everybody's really interested in that and it is going, so I would keep that. And then that's my take on that. What else you guys see?
If we're gonna go ahead and implement this, I mean, to me, it would be more logical if we could identify some of the key locations where we want the bicyclists to ride, landmarks. And then based on that, we can kind of figure out how we could go ahead and put a wayfinder to those landmarks. That way we could go from, you know, this, we use that as a center and then just kind of radiate out. For us to basically just put wayfinders in where it's like, to what destination are we trying to get these people to?
Very well said. If I could comment really quickly on that. You know, one of the things I've seen in using bike paths and street bike routes over the years is there are some signs like that. Mainly in Mountain View and Palo Alto, but in other towns around, and I think, do we have anything around Hetch Hetchy, that I think says like this way to Palo Alto, or I think we have some signage there. I think that might be the only place that I can think of where we have something currently in Los Altos, but a lot of times I see,
Yeah, it says bike lane in parallel.
yeah, exactly. But I see that around town, places, you know, where you can get on your bike and you can see basically a 3-way sign that says here this way to even Mountain View to Palo Alto, or to like a specific location. And yeah, I think that's an interesting and useful addition to the exercise around, you know, I do plenty of times just see bike route, and I think that can be useful in and of itself, even if you don't direct people, because what we know is a lot of people are already on their bikes, they're already going somewhere, and they just need to know if this route that they are planning to use is, you know, indicated as safe, or the way that a bike should go versus something that's going to dump them onto, you know, freeway exit interchange or something, right?
But what else is likely?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was gonna ask if you're diving, well, I appreciate your passion about it,
Yeah.
diving deep into
Totally.
how we saw something versus what we wanna take on.
100%, yeah.
So I was gonna pause you.
Yeah.
Sorry for some.
Yeah, no, I, same thing,
Yeah.
that's the same thing, I think there seems like there's interest in it, so.
Yeah.
That's something that we should probably work on, let's kind of solidify, let's put two to the discussion and say, let's solidify what we want to
Yeah.
accomplish this year.
And sorry, I bit too hard on that one, but Steve, I think you were talking more about, you know, your thoughts and your takeaway on, big picture, what you see.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that question is this: what is our target audience? Who are those who are very efficient, very strong bicyclists? They will go on anywhere. But if you are trying to gear it towards kids and families, well, then we have a whole different audience that we got targeting.
Yeah.
And how we could present this. So I think that's kind of an important thing that we need to talk about, as well as what is the outcome, like, you know, Steve already mentioned, what is the outcome result we're trying to get? What is the end result? So I think those needs to be defined before we can start putting these things together.
Maybe that's our work item is this year, is to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's basically, maybe our work item is to see if we can effectively create a wayfinding system. And, you know, in the process, identify 1 or 2 corridors, like you said, that we
Yeah.
want to focus on.
Exactly.
And see if we can implement it in what that looks like.
Yeah.
And see, and maybe if we can dovetail that with signage that can go into one of our capital projects this year, that would be great. Maybe that's our goal, is, you know, saying we can identify 1 or 2, you know, corridors, routes, end to end, and see if we can create a wayfinding system, and whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think project 2 captures everything you just said to a T. Project 2?
No, that's true.
Yeah, so developing, implementing, I mean, that's a high level, but identifying and installing new signage.
But I'm saying after that, maybe say, let's try to actually implemented one or two projects.
Oh, like actually target one or two.
Yeah, one or
locations.
two specific locations, work with staff and see if we can do that, right, and then. And then we can, then maybe use that, use that as a template to identify who our audience is, what do you want, how kind of map we want to create. Discussion.
If I may suggest,
Yeah.
can we agendize it for the future? And try to hash this thing out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to. I
Agreed.
understand what the commissioners are asking for,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I'm trying to also try to balance. What is the priority for the council?
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how I balance those two items.
Okay, yeah, but it could be a work item for us.
Yeah,
For the
it always-
commission to
any
do
of
exactly
these
that. right?
projects or things can be things that we take on individually as either working pairs or subcommittees over the year. To say, great, we're gonna do legwork for, the city, for you, Stephen, or otherwise, to make sure that we're aligned. Because some of these are gonna happen naturally, some we need to actually lean in and do more.
And so we're sitting here at the end of January. And the priorities for council, as council's now changed a little bit. I, for one, don't know how their priorities have changed, if they have or have not. If they haven't changed, then we should have a sense of what their priorities are. And it was going into this past year, Safe Routes to School was their top priority. A lot of the things that are on here, I think that are high on the list, we've gone a long way to solving. I mean, an obvious example is e-bike safety and programming. I mean, the ordinance itself was an education program. Because with all the publicity we got, and it's prior in schools. I was talking to a couple of the LAPD today. And they're seeing a much less egregious e-bike activity, even though there's more total e-bike activity. So that seems to be working at the state level, while we're meeting here, Representative Berman was holding a virtual town hall across the entire district about a bill he's introduced for a statewide e-bike ordinance. So that's moving on multiple fronts, right? So as we look at this, what are the ones that are outstanding? The whole area of education, I think, is still kind of fluid in terms of where we are as a city. I talked to the LAPD today, and they said the new thinking is that it's a shared responsibility between staff and the police department. And that's rumor, right? It's rumor. Anyway, somebody in the police department told me that. And
It's a shared responsibility in PD and who?
City.
I don't know if it's responsible for the budget or what, but, or anyway, so it's clear that there's no clear. And we own it as a commission, right? So we ought to be thinking about where is education on our list.
Can I add something really quick on that specific point, Steve, that I can give back to you? Okay, just to say, on the education piece and the PD involvement piece, we're currently working more in personal capacity, but relates to our work here on Walker Wheel Day for Covington. And PD is supporting that, Mike Taylor and some other folks, and they're also really excited about doing bike rodeo Covington. Covington's one that hasn't done some of this activity for a while for a number of reasons, and so just want to say, continue to get really good engagement from PD in some of these areas. I really appreciate it. It's an awesome thing the department does, and yeah, I think we can engage them more.
Well, I understand that, but we talked about it past meeting. Money for an outside consultant, we talked about piggybacking on what Mountain View was doing.
Yeah.
And using those programs in a more official and, maybe official isn't the right word, but a more structured way, right? To actually get programs that could be implemented widely across the schools rather than every one or two. So we ought to think about, do we elevate that, something like that on the list? So I guess my question is, what do we want to elevate and what do we want to drop down?
Clark?
Well, I'm the newest member, so I have a question and some comments. So the way I was thinking also about this project is short-term wins versus long-term wins, right? Because I know there are long-term plans, as Steve said, right, that are, we want to complete all of Springer, right? And maybe around El Camino Real and what we heard from Comment, right? Distal, Marriage, all of that, there's gonna be a lot of construction. So that's probably a longer term plan with that needs better striping on the whole thing. But I was wondering if we could do then, if we could have short-term wins, like, you know, the wayfinding, rather than in all of around the city in a certain part, as Wesley was saying, right? Like, what if we brought it just to those high Egan space and just install signs that say safe routes to school, that I have no idea about cost, but I'm assuming that it's way cheaper than striping any street, right? And then that will help solve a little bit of the wayfinding problem. Cars will also see that there is a safe route to school, and that might also slow cars down because they see there's a sign for, you know, if it's a bike route or it's a safe route to school, right? That might help with that. And it will address, you know, the concerns that we keep on hearing from families that ride bikes and take the kids to school, right? So I'm thinking about it in the sense of not trying to solve all the wayfinding problems of the city or all the bike routes, but how can we make it into smaller wings that will make the commission, you know, work and have results, but also ways for the community to feel like they're being heard and that at least something is getting done, rather than waiting for the perfect solution. So, but my question is, again, as a new member of the commission, is so then, let's say that we all agree, we love the wayfinding, we want to do it, and of course, we have Stephen Art, we present it to the city, and then what happens? City council decides, yes, that's also a priority for us, and then they allocate funding.
How it works is if we were going to do, let's say, number 2, and we modified it to develop and implement wayfinder maps, or just develop and implement safe biking mechanisms to 1 to 2 locations, right? Shrink the change to Ashley's point. And we developed a plan. We would develop it in conjunction with Stephen and say, here's our checklist of things we want to accomplish, whether it's signage, re-identifying the route being actually a safe route to school.
Yeah.
And then do we classify this particular route as for children in schools, or is this just a bike route in general that it's labeled as a bike path, like I currently see for a sign on Almond going to Los Altos High, it just says bike path. Doesn't say safe route to school. I was like, oh, the bike path, people ride here. There is, you know, there's a cycle track there in 2 directions, but I think that's for us, and then we work with the city staff to say, hey, here's what we can work on, how do we implement this?
So for an example of that is Commissioner Lee told us a little while ago that the top 5 safe routes to school from a priority perspective are pretty much identified, and he's comfortable that we've got the right 5. Right?
Well, the safety went through the complete streets master plan and identified the safety, like the schools that were laid out and the things that were supposed to be accomplished.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
And
I don't think he did. There was no, he did show like percentage wise, like how many of elements from the plan were implemented, but that's not really, that's not really.
no, there was a list though of the top streets, right?
A list, he gave a breakdown of the schools and then how much of the work that was planned versus is completed.
You might have been looking at this, Steve,
Yeah.
where, yeah, you should count the percentage, but it's not really useful
Right.
exactly in that way, because like Tony said,
So here's a
yeah,
question.
exactly.
Right now, staff and the police department are working to do a citywide radar study, right?
Correct.
And how does the priority of what streets were actually, checking speed limits on, or the speed of the cars, how does that dovetail with safe routes to school? Right, I know we're doing Foothill Expressway, we're doing San Antonio Road, we're doing Grant probably. And then beyond that, is there a way that we can prioritize things like that at the same time to say, here are the safe routes to school issues or streets that we believe are top priorities, and let's address radar there first. And then we know, are these streets that we want to do some type of traffic calming with, either with signage or whatever other tools we have.
I think
So, begin to actually act on what we're doing, and near term and long term.
I think the beauty of your comment is it strikes project six, waiting for the citywide survey to be completed, right? We don't have a say on where they're doing it, as we heard from city staff 2 meetings ago, where we will receive the results of the survey, and then we will have an information to make decisions on, so that's one aspect.
No, I understand that, the staff knows where to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's maybe a moot point until we have the results, because in the end, it's being done, and then we will know kind of where we're gonna reduce speed or change speed or things of that nature. Hence why we're identifying, we're gonna say, identify the top 5 locations to speed review, leveraging, blah, 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 right? So until we have it, we can't do much yet, unless I'm mistaken.
My sense is that when we say citywide, it doesn't mean the streets in the city. It means we look at, I think they're looking at the citywide and saying, here are the streets we want to do, right?
PD has already given me a priority of what location they want done based on their observation of speed. So they have already given me the list, it's just a matter of getting it done. Right now, the direction I have, based on the budget I'm given, is very limited. So with that, I'm trying to get some of the areas that they would like surveyed now. So right now, we're engaging with consultants, we're trying to execute an agreement for them to go out and do some survey.
So I haven't started it yet, no.
Yeah, no, we're still in the contract phase.
Or an instruction you do.
Well, along those lines, I was thinking that the survey, the radar survey is just one piece of information, especially if we're talking about safe routes to school, because I have the feeling that the survey is not gonna be done around many of the safe routes to school, right? So yes, the radar survey is one piece of information, but we also have potentially traffic information or accidents from the police department. That's another piece. And then community comments, right? Yeah, I know that some people comment more than others, but if we keep on hearing from people more and more about the same streets, well, maybe, there's something there. So we can use radar survey plus, accident data plus what we're hearing from the community as a factor to decide what are the top 5 streets, right? Rather than, again, waiting just for the survey, just for something.
Take as many data points as we can to help make our decisions. I think it's a summarization of what we're looking to do, which is great. So actually, do you have a comment you were next up in the queue?
No, I think we should just go down the list.
That was my next question, but, let's go through it. But before we take that approach, do you have
I want to one more thing, just because this complete your master plan, such a great resource. Encourage folks to just like put it in Notebook LN, query it, look at it, however you see fit. But Clara, you mentioned accidents, where they happen. There's some really good maps showing where pedestrian and cyclist and vehicle collisions happen across Los Altos, and it's mainly downtown, at El Camino, and in a few other areas that people probably understand very well. But just encourage people, take a look. It's a few years old, but still, I bet you, if you did it, refresh the data, you're gonna see a lot of the same lists. Anyway, that piece. Second, just going back to Stephen's point on council priority for things, that's my guiding principle. Joining this commission, I'm thinking about what is the people of Los Altos, as we're told by the city council, what do they want us to do? And everything I've heard in the last couple of years is do safe routes to school, make them work, implement Complete Streets Master Plan. And if you look at the Complete Streets Master Plan, there's a recommendation in here that says the city should develop a wayfinding sign plan as budget and staff time permit. So to me, that's pretty decisive. It says the city should also examine pavement markings as a first measure. And it says specifically the city should install wayfinding signs at the following skewed intersections. And it gives a list of 8 intersections. So I think maybe the first order of business is just to look at each of those intersections to see if those signs are in place. If they're not, let's put them in place. Or talk about what it would cost to do that. Or, do an evaluation of whether it's still justified. But I think we've got the direction, right? And I also think we should go back and make sure that we're really, really engaging with city council, new members of city council, got a new mayor, all this stuff. So I totally endorse, Stephen, your point on that as well. But I also think we should use the direction that we already have and what we've heard from council in recent year as well. So that was my only one on that.
So for an action item for me, I will be emailing Larry Lane, he is our appointed council liaison.
Again, this year.
Yes, they approved it last night.
Nice.
So I'll ask him for feedback and input as we're finalizing this piece. And secondly, Wes, you have the ability to give us this information asynchronously, so if you wouldn't mind. You wouldn't mind sending an email to our,
Yeah, absolutely.
For our commission, but still, he wants to be not.
Awesome.
I'm gonna ask Wes,
Oh,
it's okay, I asked Wes to send the information he wants to share regarding using tools to evaluate that.
And then I can.
And then you can circulate it around.
Oh, yeah.
Are we gonna wait for Larry to respond
To,
to your message?
I will get the message and I will send it out to be shared around, but in the meantime, I think collectively we can go through this now and begin our own prioritization list, given the information we do have. And then if anything is, you know, directive in that sense, then we can by all means incorporate it. Yeah. Hopefully, we're on the mark, given the broad spectrum of things and our 10 years on the commission, but we can do that.
Yeah, no, I think so.
So I'm gonna read through the projects.
Also, Lord Rice, you do have one meeting with Larry, with the council member, so the chair can meet with them and discuss if you want to. I think, Wes, you did that last year.
Yeah, I did. That's
So
right.
you can't do that, you can contact the chair, and you like, meet if you want to.
I'd like to, thank you. So I'm gonna go through these and I'm gonna ask us as items, not to debate them, but either if anyone has an objection, a strong objection to the idea of the project itself, that you would speak on behalf on why you think it's not important for our commission. But in the event there's general consensus, because I think there's a general consensus that there's these projects, while not specific in the location of the project, will capture the work that we want to accomplish this year as we begin the planning. As we get more data points or as we lean into something. Any objections to what I just said? No. Great, moving forward. So the first item, track complete streets master plan recommendations, metrics, and a 5-year update. I'm not gonna read the sub 3 bullets, but ultimately, is there any objection to us taking this on to review the complete streets master plan?
No, I don't have an objection, but I think on clarification, because last year, thanks to, a bunch of commissioners working on different aspects of the master plan, right? And, the commissioner released the report on this.
Yeah.
So those were focused on safe routes to school specifically, right?
Mhm.
Are we saying something different this time? What is it? What, can you make it a little bit more concrete what you want to do for the 5-year update?
Yeah, so I think the 5-year starts to identify recommendations for design of plans, identify metrics or recommended plans in progress or completed, and then determine recommendations to address for 2026 and beyond. So given this was written 5 years ago and things change rapidly with autonomous vehicles in our neighborhood, e-bikes not being a thing at that time.
Yeah.
You know, things are evolving. At some point, we need to reevaluate the complete streets master plan and either make amendments to it or, you know, note that we've made progress. This might be a subcommittee or a working parity to take this on.
And I think this is a good, I think this is a good item to bring up at the, meeting with the council. Because at the council, I think we'll probably know what their priorities are, and I think very clear, I think we should get clear direction from the council as to what their, priorities are. This may not be, is my suspicion.
Okay.
But I think I agree that we have to make this a strong recommendation, at least that's my take on it. We made a strong recommendation to council saying, commission would like to embark on this and get support from.
And remember, you're gonna get what, 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes, it's not, it's very short, so make sure you're very clear.
I mean, it's not something to work with Larry and yeah, but
And I just want to make sure all commissioners on board with us making that a priority.
yeah, I mean, it's this, we've already, in some capacity, as an example, started this. It's been done with one activity, thanks to Commissioner Lee. There's other areas if we want to dive deep enough to make, what's the recommendations we need to account for beyond this year? Like, is it in 10 years we review this? Is it, you know, like, how do we begin to use it beyond just a stagnant document, but it's something that's.
Okay, sounds good.
There's seeing no objections to that. I'm not asking us at this moment to prioritize the start date of these or the priority, but ultimately, if we feel these are things that we want you to do. So number two, modifying it from its existing language to develop and implement wayfinder maps at 1 to 2 locations with the subsequent bullets as activities. So shrinking the change, identifying areas, if we will, experiment on our efforts and proceeding forward.
And I think as Steven suggested, I mean, the first step would be is to sort of have a workshop on how, what do we do, how do we, you know, about this?
We could do some pre-planning on that, so we can come in with framework or how you think about your job, and how, so we don't coming in trying to tell you how to do your job, but learning and, you know, building on that. Okay, so leaving that as is. Number three, downtown accessibility. This would be, I mean, things that we would focus on during this time would be, May is a bicycle month. There's other organizations that are doing work around downtown bike safety. We talk a lot about bike racks. And then we're also including in here walking improvements. I'm not sure exactly what walking improvements would mean downtown, but maybe walking to downtown, so.
I think it was more walking to downtown.
Walking to downtown?
Yeah, how to make it more
Walk.
walkable.
Okay. And then incorporating the general plan for redesign of this city streets. I'm not sure exactly what C would be. Anyone want to
C?
flesh that out?
Yeah, I think this is a discussion that has come multiple times. For example, we wanted to see if we make certain streets one way and all this stuff.
Okay.
But that has to be part of the general plan and the circulation plan. And I think that's what Stevens and the staff, city's guidance was to us, the commission last time, that we really can't make any progress until we start to visit the general plan. And I think that's the case. And given that, I think, I'm not sure how much, you know, what, I think maybe you can go back to some certain specific thing, walking to downtown, but again, is that maybe like a wayfinding map to downtown, is that what we're talking about?
I think, I mean, part of it, like, is just making a more walk-friendly city. We focus oftentimes, either on cars and or bikes in this commission, but with complete streets equals pedestrians as well, so. Maybe one of my focus this year is to bring the walking back in. We talk about walking safety on roads, but ultimately, how do we get people to walk there to help increase that access and safety? Part of it's, you know, people calling out those signs that flash, right? Like people bring to our attention, and Jim has many times, things that we can identify to say, hey, how do we make our not just downtown perhaps, but other locations that we
I would take out the C there.
Well, I
it's
think there's a downtown coalition that ought to be engaged in that process. Of course, there's an awful lot going on that, where there's synergy, potential synergy and potential conflicts unless we're working hand in glove with them. Gotcha.
So the proposal you're saying stretches to strike C from this item?
Because I think that's there is a larger project that's happening in downtown. I mean, I think there's plans for this with the park alignments, a bunch of things going on, and I'm pretty sure that there'll be reviews. I'm not sure if staff wants to comment or if there's any progress on that. And if the commission would be involved in any of those projects. That's the case, that kind of subsumes that. Okay, yeah, so go ahead.
One thing I would say is, I sound like I'm beating a horse, that the police use master plan has specific recommendations for downtown. And I think we talked a lot last year about that there might be a timing issue with where we are with the general plan update and when it might be possible to implement some of this stuff. I guess one thing I would like to say is happy if there's a bigger city movement or momentum around doing things downtown. I would like to make sure that we don't lose sight of work that was done years ago. I think valuable work, and make sure that those recommendations get at least raised in connection with that work. That's where I feel like, I don't know, our commission is to make sure that stuff doesn't get forgotten. I don't know, Suresh, if you have any sense of.
I mean, there's even a first rate, you know, streetscape that was developed. There's lots of plans that were developed in downtown. But it seems like there's a significant project that might come up.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that's why I'm asking is, that's the opportunity for us to see what elements from the CSMP that gets incorporated.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with the downtown? That's why I'm asking, how much is the commission going to be involved in that project? Because that project is going ahead. I don't know what the streets commission's role might be in this.
Yeah.
That's a fair question, I guess, right?
Well, the bottom line is if council's taking on the task, I don't know if they're gonna ask the complete street commissioners to take a look at it, because they're taking on the task themselves. So I know that there's a lot of movements going on right now, and in fact, Vice Mayor brought up a proposal last night about looking into one-way direction, for downtown.
So looking into,
One way down to,
Downtown, one-way direction for, state and Maine. So that's something that, we're kind of giving marching orders, so those are something that they want to talk about.
yeah, so I think that, so this is why I want staff to comment, because I didn't want to make any comments. To the, this, I want this on the record, so there is, there's significant movement there in the
Okay.
plans and so on.
Right.
So we want to dovetail in that, but I think again, my recommendation is as chair, for you to bring up what Commissioner, I'm also saying in terms of, there's a bunch of recommendations in the master plan, let's not let that drop. And make sure
Absolutely.
those are incorporated into any vision, downtown vision plans that
especially
are being developed.
maybe a specific point, you mentioned state to Maine, and the complete streets master plan talks about two other important priority stretches of downtown streets. And so if there's momentum and ability to look at one, I think that we should look at all three of them. So I think let's absolutely make sure we keep sight of that.
For number C, does it make sense that if possible, incorporate LNG general plan into this, or just?
Complete streets master plan, into any vision, that's basically our recommendation is to review the complete streets master plan as part of any downtown redesign.
I like that, that's really fun.
You're not saying incorporate the LA general plan, it's the Los Altos complete streets master plan. Correct.
And what I'm also saying is, we want guidance back from the commission, from
Yes.
the city council, that that's something that we should work on. If not, at least we make a recommendation that the staff is looking into this as part of this.
100% back.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'll modify that.
And if you wanted us involved, you could come talk.
Moving on to project 4. I'm gonna move this along.
I have a question.
Another question?
When you were talking about that one way in city council, did they give an indication of when they wanted, findings done for that, or a study done? That we would do, or somebody else would do?
They would like to discuss it sometime in March.
So
Okay, so then we would wanna maybe add it to one of our.
I mean, guys, think about this. The vice mayor is Larry Lang. Right? Larry Lang is the one that asked staff to look into it. He's also our liaison. If he wanted us to look into it, or if we thought that it was appropriate, would it make sense to talk to him about that?
I agree.
Sure, I just wondered if he was
Some of this.
looking for that.
Not really listening. Noted. Thank you all.
But also remember the priority is set by the mayor, or so.
Yeah.
So talk to the mayor as well.
I guess it's not that, but I'll do my best. So I'll make a modification of this, and saying I will take this, and then the subcommittee will review it and send it back out to the
Which
commission.
is, I was thinking, whatever they want to call for, they're probably gonna wanna see that on our plan on that March meeting.
Exactly.
So for item, project number 4, I'm striking out the letter E, so it'll just be bike safety and programming. So it will, I can put a sub bullet if you would like all, I don't know if that's needed, but all forms of multimodal transportation, or if it needs to be called out e-bike safety. Or
I think I think specifically about I think pedestrian safety and walker wheel, those two, I think are priorities from my sense.
Totally.
Okay, I will put a walk or wheel. Walk and wheel. I'm striking out, the letter E, so it's just bike safety and programming, and then the sub letter will be walk and wheel, so. Yeah. Great, moving on to number 5, walking corridor improvements. So this is in specific to, safe streets for walking for medium review advising. So this is a bigger task for us. This is for myself, maybe a passive project, but, looking to advise the city on, how to make our sidewalks safer from asphalt walkways, berms, concrete, decomposed granite. Something that becomes standardized, so we don't have a hodgepodge of road networks and different bike safeties, but ultimately a connected area for people to walk in our city or as much as possible. This is something that has not been asked of us. It's not something that's a priority for the city, as much as I've gathered, but it would be something for us to make an advice on. Any objections to number 5?
No.
No. Moving on, number 6, identify the top 5 locations for speed review, leveraging that's forthcoming. The new citywide survey results. Determining traffic calming measures. This would be for us to take the data that we received, presented from Stephen, done by police and a third party, and then be able to include the data points for recommendation. Number 7, San Antonio,
I want to get staff's input on that item.
please.
Yeah.
Is there a question specifically?
No, I just want to see how the staff might envision that the commission could help. Or how that might dovetail with any other projects that might be coming up. Because,
There's a lot of moving parts right now. I can't really give you a clear vision. In the fact that the regulation is pretty clear when it comes to speed surveys. It's either you implement it, what study shows, or you don't. And there's consequences if you don't. So there really isn't a whole lot of inputs involved. What do you do with that information afterwards? Yes, that's something that we talk about. So until things are done, it's really hard to say how the commissioner is going to be involved in that aspect.
Do we know when it's gonna be done?
Well, right now, we're trying to get 5 locations done. So we'll go through the process of, like I said, executing contact with the consultant. So we can get started on it.
I just wanted maybe city council might ask that.
Yeah, might ask us.
Yeah, I mean, soon after the study is done, I'll be working with the city manager about presenting something to council.
yes, the question is why the number 5? Why top 5? I want to see the cities think we should be doing more, should we do less?
We chose, I think, what we intended to be, or I intended to be, a manageable number of areas for us to review. So while, as I understand it, right, the process is done, the city has to implement speed limit sign changes citywide, or as after the directive of the city council, depending on how they determine that. And then we get to see the results, and if we're gonna overlay data points and say, great, these were speed areas. We see areas that are unsafe that we wanna work on, and that are safe routes to school. Now let's focus on those areas to make the biggest impact. So I think the intention of that project is to,
Is the staff on board with that?
Well, one thing that I need to kind of set expectation. A speed survey is only done on collectors and arterials, it is not done on local streets. Please keep in mind, a lot of our safe route to school is in local streets. Those are already default to 25 miles per hour, so there's no need for a speed survey to be done. Things that's gonna be done are like San Antonio, Grant, Fremont, Miramonte, Foothill Expressway, roads that has been identified, Los Altos Avenue, that by Caltrans as very specific classification of roads. So, I mean, once that's done, like I said, we can implement it or we can. If we do implement it and this is what the speed shows, then we can figure out, okay, what do we need to do after that?
Okay, all right.
Well, and I think that's the point I was trying to make before, that the radar survey is just one small, big but small piece of information. If the goal is to, identify top safety streets, that may not be big arteries, right? That may be, places where people are speeding that happen to be safe routes to school. So that's when we can use traffic data from the police department, community input, etc., not just the radars.
so Suresh, to your question, and I thought of it more. We're seeing identifying the top 5 locations based off of the speed review versus I didn't initially include just, leverage the new citywide survey to determine traffic calming measures, which is a broad statement, right? Well, where are we gonna focus our energy? And maybe there's 5 initially, but the ultimate.
Okay, that's fine. No, it's okay. I think that, yeah.
Okay. Then next one is San Antonio redesign and revision. I think this is if anyone was one of 2 mandated ones, this would be one for the commission this year.
Okay, this is primarily staff-driven project, so.
Yeah, well, us being the conduit for community.
Yeah, I think the traffic calming on San Antonio that they've been doing for the last couple of months is working perfectly.
AKA the construction.
Exactly.
I could just, but, unless you like it.
If you like, with
I didn't-
thank you, PJ.
Yeah, it works.
But it works.
It works.
Some people, so you say that more construction.
Slowing people down, but it's really backing up.
Tell me about it.
Moving on to number 8, identify and fix the top 5 unsafe streets. So 8, use and review and approve of the annual street resurfacing along with the safe routes to school and restriping and road geometries. Any changes to this?
Would this include, we discussed, at some point we may want to revisit this,
This would be one. This is,
so these are the projects that would fall into that bucket.
yeah, we,
Different, always will fall into this bucket.
yeah, we presumably create a small group of dedicated people that say, great, based off feedback from public at large over the last 1, 2, 3 years. Things we're identifying from multiple points and saying, here's how we're gonna fix this problem collectively. Yeah. If we want to shrink that and say 1 or 2, if we want to be realistic, because obviously I think some of the projects that we need to work on.
Maybe more than 5, we don't know.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, this is one of the highest priority items for us on ongoing. This is safe routes, most of it is safe routes to school stuff, right?
Yeah, I think once we have maybe a framework, which we don't have yet, right, ultimately look at these multi-faceted problems and create something with the city that will be better poised to make change.
I think we do already have, some strong input on a couple of,
We have inputs.
a couple of
We
streets
have
that
a
we
framework.
think are, potentially have some safety issues and are on the network of safe routes to school. Given and this will, especially with this whole, we have a lot of input, right? Sentiment about, but anyway, okay. I don't know that we necessarily need to boil the ocean. I think it'll be a good exercise to do, but I feel like we don't need to say that we're starting from, tabula rasa, total clean slate. That's mine. Yeah.
So, is this saying identify the top 5 unsafe streets? Or does it mean identify and fix the top 5 unsafe safe routes to school? What does it mean?
I mean, and the sub bullet is use and review of community annual resurfacing along with safe routes to school and restriping and road geometry. So
Yeah.
things that we see, right, Steven showed us today, like how do we modify the road geometries with lanes to ultimately make traffic slower in some areas where people are speeding. In other areas, it's using safe routes to school like distal, right? We heard public comment, kids are riding here, we need to fix this, so it's the conglomerate. When we identify those, might be some input from Tony's work, right, and saying these are schools that we should focus on given.
Yeah, I think it could be safe route to school or not, Steve, but I think we definitely have a little bit of a thumb on the scale if it's safe route to school, that we wanna scrutinize it, we wanna prioritize it. And the way I think about it at least is, if it's a safe route to school, that gives us an indication that it's high priority, but because there are particular safety considerations around schools, and when you're talking about kids and families getting to and from, we're seeing higher level of flow of people on foot and bike, and, gonna have young kids and folks like that, so I think that all folds into the safety question anyway.
Okay. I'm just wondering, if somebody who isn't part of this conversation reads that, will they understand that nuance?
That's a good question.
Or should you just, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying is whether you put something about SRTS in the top line as bolded, rather than just have it as a sub-bullet as something that you're gonna look at, that we're gonna look at. Knowing that council is gonna look at this.
I could modify this, so under where it says the bold, maybe say use, safe routes to school. Safe routes to school, along with the annual resurfacing, to identify locations, something to that effect, right? So I call it out in the first statement, and that way it's using that in addition to this and public feedback, something to that effect. I think that's what we're calling out that it's not good, so. Annual, does that capture what you want, or are you looking for more of, I don't think we're,
No, I
fault.
I think as long as, the reason I raised that was only to, reduce the cost of living misunderstanding.
yes, that's important, thank you. I'll clarify that statement and make sure it's very clear how we're leveraging. The difference of that. And, number 9, review and approval of the annual road resurfacing, that's a given. And then number 10, road impact planning for new development. This is something that might confuse some people, but ultimately the idea, being, I'll read them out, is future traffic rates over under park streets and mitigation opportunities, parking management, and then use the Los Altos general plan for a redesign of city streets. This comes into play, for instance, B, parking management around Los Altos High School, where there's no parking restrictions placed on residents. They've expressed their frustration. They can't park in front of their own home. How do we manage that? Future traffic rates, in the city council meeting last night, new developments going in at the corner of Jordan and El Camino, with 85 new units. Big challenge already, like we see on Distal. We'll see the same on Jordan, where there's going to be densification of traffic flows, and so part of that is that piece, and the last part is use the general plan for redesigning our streets. And Stevens talked about this in that meeting where we talked about Distal, and I did a deep dive into the general plan and the modification in 2019 and then 2022, where the economic corridor of Los Altos is El Camino Real, and it is proposed as of right now, 1,900 units will be built on the small stretch between San Antonio and Distal, 5150, technically. And that's really will change the flow and kind of traffic in general in that area and the road impact, which is take off the school, sidewalks, public safety, parking, all of them. So one thing we haven't really ever talked about, or that I don't see right now in the current general plan, is that change to our streets. And so this is a bigger thing for us to think about, but I think we're hearing symptoms of it from the public at large. And it's 1 year out now, Distal Circle. Yeah, so anyhow, that's what this one is about. So the idea is, it's managing capital improvement projects, but it's a bigger long-term planning for us.
I think this is sort of a combination of multiple commissions involved here.
It is.
The planning commission, the streets. I don't know how much the streets commission is, will be involved, but in some of the reviews of this projects, probably not, because
Not the project, but the streets, right? Like, how do we get
The
them
question
about
is what you're
walkability?
what you're raising is what's the impact on the traffic in general, traffic rates and so on,
Big roads to school.
and then the impact on safe routes to school.
In line.
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
I think,
So the question, I think my question is, what is it that we can do concretely to address this? I'm still not 100% sure. What is it that we would?
One thing, in the meeting last night, even Larry Lane noted, I don't know how Meadows did, but ultimately noted that it's the Complete Streets Commission's work to ultimately work with residents that have concerns about the new development going in. So I think they're being directed to us to take that input, because the new developments that are happening. So that's one piece, right? Being aware that that's coming our way.
Okay.
As
Okay.
for
So this,
the other piece for planning though, for parking management, I think, I've heard it loud and clear, whenever I drive, I personally feel bad for all the residents that live over by Los Altos High School, and they have no parking option in front of their house between 8 and noon. And I'm like, oh, I would want some policy where I can get a placard, like, if we're gonna be a big city, we should act that one, right? Which means like you get a parking placard for your front yard with your guests. It exists in Santa Cruz, it exists in San Francisco. So there's pieces that I'm like, where can we actually make impact, where people's lives are
yeah,
impacted?
so these are sort of adding, these are kind of sundry items. Because the thing I'm asking is, I don't think we can work on any of these things unless we have some direction from city council.
But would this also, number 10, then be the same for number 5? It's the same thing, in the sense of us thinking more holistically about our streets versus just, cars and like that.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my caveat, it's kind of a nice to, yeah, sure, but I don't think we can make any progress without specific direction from city council.
Can you clarify that first? What do you mean by specific direction from city council?
As a work item, we cannot agendize and take up any of these items, because they're not in our purview. Unless there's specific, specific goals or specific items, the city council asks us to work on. I mean, a lot of these involve other commissions, like the planning commission, new development and the planning commission and so on. So unless there's something specific, we can input into that process. That's why I'm asking, is there something that we have thought about? And I'm not sure what that is. What is it that we can work on specifically to say, okay, this is going to be put into that process? I mean,
Well,
we've gone through that. For example, myself and I think Commissioner Katz, we've gone through a couple of these projects before. In terms of impact on traffic and so on, and there's a new development. But there's also a number of, those have to do with specific projects, and the impact those specific projects have. What you're saying here is, no, let's look at holistically all the changes that have happened, that might happen, and what we can do about it, right? And that's a major undertaking, right? That's for sure. That's consultants coming in to help and doing traffic studies and impacts and all that stuff. So I'm saying that's why. I think, I'm not sure what we can, as a goal for next year, what we can move forward. And I'm trying to see if we can solidify that. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing that.
Well, from my perspective, I think if some of it is things that we are already doing, like determining traffic calming measures, the striping, resurfacing.
Yeah, sure, yes.
Working on the, review the asphalt walkways, berm, concrete, all of that, because all of that are things that we can proactively do that is already within the work of the commission, and we don't have to wait for the building to be built, right?
Yeah,
For the
so
people to come, we can do it proactively, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's correct, yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, how do you want to present this to council as a work item for us?
Right. I mean, when I expect when this gets presented to council, there are certain columns that will drop off the presentation, right? Like the notes go away, right? Because the notes could be confusing.
Correct, that's one.
So, that I don't think we should focus on that detail. Or, worry about that.
To your point, Stretch, so, one of the three items for me to discuss with Larry Lang in more detail would be, 1, 3, and 10. And figure out where this fits, I guess, within our purview. 6, I guess, fits in there as well. And then, yes, to your point, Steve, notes will be stricken from this when it's presented to the city council. And to your point, I think maybe perhaps I heard it last night from city council, like complete streets will help address these issues that are developed.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, I also know Steven in the last thing he said, like, well, it's hard to plan for city streets that aren't yet developed yet, but we have a whole economic corridor that is planned for development.
So
In a 5-year term, right, which means a change of a neighborhood.
I agree. I think it's good to be proactive about this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But having a clear
Yeah.
direction.
You know it's coming.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's being built right now, it's being built right now. So I will circle on those with 10 being tentative. And figuring out how we shape that or not, and then addressing the other things. But I think as for the anticipated date, I want to put more work on your plate, but I don't know how we can sync with the ad hoc subcommittee and get a general plan for you, like January through December, of where some of these things might play, if you have a Gantt chart, or just like a general overlay, so we can say, hey, based off of your work, we anticipate to work on these items during those time frames. I wouldn't slot them necessarily like this, but given this is the format we were given from the city, I need to abide by it, so
Can we talk offline?
yes, we can. Okay.
It's just a big undertaking, so.
Yeah, we can not have to granular detail, right, but based off our priorities and things we're working on, being able to say, hey, here's the likelihood of how we should slot this based off of annual resurfacing starts these months, right, here's what we're gonna look at that in this meeting. I can hopefully try and make it easier on you, and not make it overly burdensome. Any final thoughts? Any
No, I think. I'm getting ahead of myself now, but and ahead of the commission, but. Part of this preparation is to have a document, an outline of the conversation we're gonna have with the city council in March. And I think a part of that conversation, I would like a part of that conversation, and I'm talking personally, not with the commission. I'd like to have a conversation with the council then to say, what role do you want the commission to play in supporting you on your priorities? So for example, when you take on ownership of changing, asking staff to look at a one-way system for downtown Los Altos, do you see the commission in supporting the council in that process? Or is that outside what the commission does? Because that's not clear to me.
I think as a law, bigger, not just for this year, right, but year over year, figuring out how we'll align, so.
Exactly.
Yes. I'll work to get a official, unofficial statement from Larry Lang, and then I wrote a question down and share that, but, then if I'm not mistaken, based off last year, I will present our work plan to the city council. Wes will sit there as a vice chair. Everyone's welcome at that meeting to have a dial in or sit in the audience. I don't think public comment was made on these particular. I don't remember any public comment. Yeah.
Just as an interaction.
Yes.
Last year, we all
That.
we all came up together, yeah.
Oh, so that's right.
We all came up together.
So perhaps, if we don't have that answer, then we can clarify.
Just as a matter of, kind of recommendation from me,
Please.
is not to go through the list, if then I can just present the list.
Yeah, get that done, right, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have much time.
Yeah.
The themes, of what we want to accomplish,
Yeah.
alignment with the
And
city.
get clear direction from them as to what the goals are.
Yeah, what you wanna do is you wanna bring up what you accomplished last year and what you wanna do this year. That's basically, be, specific on the time. Probably 5 to 10 more minutes, then 10 to 15, because there's 4 commissions that go in that day, it's in 1 hour, so. There we go, that'll be quick.
Some of the commissions want a different day.
Yeah, there is, for that day, March 10th, you have 4 commissions.
Because I think last year they did all the commissions on one day.
No, they
split.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you for everyone's feedback. If you have any things that came up, come up later and you want to message the council, please send them to Art. You can circulate them around. I will have this updated. Today's Wednesday. I will give myself till next Wednesday, so by a week at the latest, and then we'll have the updated version. We can sync offline, the 3 of us, to make sure that we make any adjustments and that it's ready, and then, Stephen, you and I can talk about timelines at a general level. Thank you, everyone. Many ways to get to the goal. I think we got there. And I look forward to accomplishing as many as we possibly can, of these items over the next year.
And I'm assuming we're gonna continue with the ad hoc subcommittee, because eventually we're gonna have to.
We will dissolve it.
We're still gonna keep it, right?
Yeah, we will.
I just wanna make sure. No, I'm just saying, you can't create another.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're gonna have to.
No,
You're gonna create another ad hoc.
Okay. No need this time.
Right. So don't distract, okay, no worries.
So moving on to the next item on the agenda, city staff updates. Stephen Art.
Maybe you could bring up, Covington, what we did, because that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Block Middle School, I don't know if you guys have seen, driven by Block Middle Schools, you have some updates on that.
I don't know, it's, on Covington in front of the block, we have installed a stop sign. To try to, well, first place, there's enough volume going to that area to justify, a stop sign one. And given the fact that there's a lot of kids crossing that street, we kind of made a necessity to install the stop sign. So the striping itself has been modified. We have installed a stop sign. And right now we're going through the public education portion of this installation. PD has been doing traffic enforcement for the last 3 weeks. They've been giving warnings, unless someone has been very egregious in the violation, then they give them other kind of reminders. We are working with, or I'm working with the school to notify the parents to not block Covington. Because the parents really wants to pick up, drive in and pick up their kids. So they have been, blocking Covington and causing some serious hazards. So, we've been trying to educate the parents to basically saying, with the parking lot's full, go park and walk in. Instead of trying to block Covington and trying to get into the parking lot. That was done, just to let you know, since everybody keeps asking the question, San Antonio. I've submitted the final paperwork today so that we can get officially start this project. So I'll be working on a request for statement of qualifications to various consultants and start the process of hiring a consultant. That will probably, it'll take me a little bit of time, but I'm hoping to have council award a contract to a consultant by May, June of this year. And get them started no later than July. So that we can start the process of doing extensive studies. One of the requirements is going to be traffic impact studies that needs to be done first before we start going down the road of is this something that we could go ahead and install or not. So it's also going to take a full year. My anticipation is it'll take a full year of doing public outreach. A lot of the public outreach will be to notify the residents of the city and probably have it in this, at our commission meeting. So that's where we're at this time. Our annual streets, the project is substantially completed. The contractor is currently in the process of, installing all the bicycle greens, the green backing for the bicycle lanes. They're going through that. They're still waiting on deliveries to be delivered. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I don't know if you guys had a chance to go through downtown Radford and Redbury. We have installed the slot drains. I don't know if you guys like on the side or not, but that has now been all completed. So, yeah, and then this still, we are probably going to be going out probably in the next couple of months on the restriping. We'll include that in our annual striping plan project. So hopefully we will have the plans done in February, got the bid, and work by April, May. So to try to catch it while the weather's still warm and dry.
Great.
Last questions for Stephen?
On this goal, just a question. One of the things that I think works really well on Traffic Common, where if you have people speeding, like it's been reported by a resident or two, are the signs that tell you how fast you're going and to slow down, where radar is built into the sign. What, do we have a city policy about using those kinds of signs?
No, we do not, but it works initially for the first month. And then people know about it and they start calibrating their speed according to it. It's the long term, it's not very effective.
Is that right?
Yeah, because initially they look at it and say, oh, I'm speeding, I'm gonna slow down. But as people get more accustomed to it, more used to it, then they're really fine. I mean, those are one of the things that is considered speed calming. But the nature of people is, I've slowed down, nothing's happening, I gotta go back to
I must be a slow learner.
Tommy, don't change. Keep slowing down. But that's basically it. We're probably gonna start doing our list of projects. It's probably in the next couple months to start doing budgets. As we start to wait for next year's budget.
Stephen, was the stop sign at Miramonte and Covington? That was the intersection.
Hayman, it's Hayman.
Gaming.
There's already an existing crosswalk.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thanks.
Art, do you have that update? No. That was it. Any commissioner reports?
I'll do real quick, not even a report, but just, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, doing walk and wheel. We're gonna do it for Covington, with some folks from Greektown, and PD, and a bunch of parents and folks from PTA. That's gonna be next Friday, so, we'll report out how that goes, and yeah, another good experience for, schools in the city, try to get a good turnout.
Do we have a report from Stacy?
No, she had report, I did email her, minutes for a meeting, so, when she does, I will definitely spread the word, so.
Okay. And, potential future agenda items, any recommendations from the commission?
The only thing that I wanted to see is, with, Stacey Banerjee's, term is coming up this year, I believe. in
Yes, June. I know I read from my email, she is not the chair, for this, I guess, we call founder here, so she's a regular member of the thing, so she's not the chair. But her, June is her, so we have to, we actually.
If I had a question, was whether she turns out that she can be renewed, or do we, should we consider,
Again, that's what we decide, right?
I don't know what the policies are of the.
I think after June, that's her contract, after the 2 year,
No,
now we have to redo it.
Can we reappoint her, the question? If not, do we need to consider, so that's something that the agenda for us to discuss.
We could probably reappoint her, but I don't know if she wants to continue doing it.
Okay, so that's
So
something,
that's something, and then we might have to talk to the city manager, because he did sign the, when she was reappointed.
Mhm.
City manager had to sign it off, basically, so those are kind of things we have to talk about.
If I may interject, one of the wishes of the city manager is one of the
There you go.
commissioners who's gonna be representing us, because
sorry, I can't hear you, so.
the wish of the city manager is to have one of the commissioners be the representative, because they do have a very integral connection between the two.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
so that's the question I had is,
Yeah.
we should discuss who wants to jump on, what does it take? Maybe someone.
And June is the deadline, so.
So well, I mean, I sent a email to Stacy and staff to formalize the agreement that we had for her to send updates, whether she had one or not, so we're aware of the DTA DPAC efforts that are occurring. I can message her as well, including in the thread, just asking for her intent to proceed forward, but ultimately stating that, the city would like it to come back to a commissioner at large. And simultaneously, I'm going to ask her to come present kind of the overall, like the role, the position itself, like she would do, right? So people we can understanding, then one of us could choose to volunteer for that role, but obviously it's additional work. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that. Any other potential future agenda items? I think part of the agenda items that we need to, begin working on or think about, would be, taking actions or steps on these items that we have before us. Some of them are pending information and data points that we need to collect or get. But as you're reviewing this and things you're thinking about, please think how you want to make an impact on the commission this year, maybe things, passion projects you care about, and things that we can do individually or collectively to move us along. So I'll be working with Wes and the city staff on future agenda items. Obviously, one will be the approval of the work plan that we will devise. And then potentially making some recommendations from that, where we can then begin taking steps ourselves. Moving on for adjournment, a motion to adjourn at
8:40.
8:40.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.